Hey everybody, we're live and in stereo. I hope, sir, I'm low-key broke so I can take demo. It's okay, Kumail. If you have any financial issue, you can contact Ms. Naba. Those who are interested in joining my past paper session for AS level chemistry, I don't know what the hell just happened. What the hell is something wrong with something is wrong with the app. What the hell? Wait, guys. Something is wrong with the app. Something is wrong. What the hell? I think I have to restart the app or something. Because things aren't looking good, guys. Things aren't looking good. अब सही हो गया. Yes. Now the app is fine. So as I was saying, those of you who want to take my class, can you guys see the screen? I think the app is cooked. Can you guys all see the screen or no? Yes? Can everybody see the screen? Please tell me. Tell me if you can see the screen properly. I'm gonna restart it, by the way. Let's restart it so everybody can see it. Yes. Now everybody can see it. Even the app is cooked. Even the app is cooked. Everywhere, hey everybody. Sir, you love my hat. Thank you, sir. O level class वाली link मिली है जो आपकी कराने का link मिली. What are you saying, Sahabat? This is AS level past paper session. Now, guys, we'll be solving half a paper every single day because in AS level, you all know that yes, it's a paid. You all know, big fan. Thank you. I'm also a big fan of you guys. You all know that the explanations are very in depth. So although I can solve the entire paper in 1 hour 15 minutes, I'm not going to do that because that is on you guys. I have to explain every single question in a lot of detail, the detail which you have never ever seen before. I promise you. Let's start, right? So I write my name, Suleiman Khan. By the way, organic chemistry should be teach tally for everybody. Almost 15 to 16 MCQs belong to organic chemistry in your MCQ paper, and they are the simplest of MCQs, right? Those who want to register for my past paper session, you can register by contacting Miss Naiva, which is +923181772015. I'm going to solve half a paper today and then half the paper tomorrow for the demo. Let's start, guys. Question number one. We are doing 970112 February March 2025. Question number one says, a Boltzmann distribution for a sample of reacting gas at a constant temperature is shown. Okay, he's shown me this graph right here. This is at a particular temperature. And seeing that the activation energy is EA for the reaction, that is marked. So EA is marked. This is EA. You have D point, B, A, C. I think we have to select between these four options. I don't think I know, right? Now he's saying the temperature of the sample, point X shows the number of particles whose energy is equal to the activation energy. Yes, X have the number of particles whose energy is equal to the activation energy. Even B is the point is telling you the number of particles which have activation energy equal to EA, and DE is also the point in which you're getting to see particles having the activation energy equal to EA because they all fall on the same vertical line. A are particles who have fewer energy than EA, and C are particles, those particles which have more energy than the EA. Now he's saying the temperature of the sample of gas is decreased. Now what happens when the temperature decreases? What happens? Well, it's a very basic concept. You've all studied this. When the temperature decreases, you know that area under the graph, area under the Boltzmann distribution graph will show you the number of particles, wouldn't it? And if it does that, you need to ensure that if there's a decrease in temperature, you accommodate the decrease in temperature in such a manner that the area under the graph remains the same. And what happens is when you decrease the temperature, kinetic energy of particles decreases, right? And the frequency of collisions decreases. But more than that, in AS level chemistry, you've also learned that when you decrease the temperature, kinetic energy of particles decreases, and now fewer particles have energy equal to or greater than the EA. So fewer particles will now have higher energy than EA or energy equal to the EA because you've decreased the temperature. And because of decrease in temperature, kinetic energy decreases. And we all know that kinetic energy is directly proportional to what? Kinetic energy is directly proportional to temperature. So if temperature decreases, kinetic energy of particles decreases. And when kinetic energy of particles decreases, you now have fewer particles which possess activation energy, right? So what's going to happen to the graph? The graph basically, what happens to it? So it shifts to the left. The graph shifts to the left, and what else happens? Sir, the peak increases. So it has a higher peak and shifts to the left. It looks something like this, something like this. right here, something like this. This is how the graph is going to look like. Yeah? It shifted a little to the left and the peak increased. But if you increase the temperature, how would the graph look like if you increased the temperature? Well, if you increase the temperature, the graph would shift to the right hand side and it would spread. So it spreads to the right hand side, the y-axis dips, and the graph shifts to the right hand side by spreading. So what would happen is, it would obviously start from origin, don't mind my drawing, but what would happen is, in case you increase the temperature, something like this would happen. Something like this, right? In case you increase the temperature, because the graph dips and you shift to the on the x-axis, you shift to the right hand side, because you need to ensure that now more particles are going to have energy equal to or greater than the EA. And you can even see it when you increase the temperature. What would happen is, before, if you had these many, the pink are representing the number of particles which have energy greater than the EA. But now when you increase the temperature, now it is pink plus yellow. Now more particles have energy greater or equal to the EA. So the graph dips and spreads. And the reason why you spread it is because you want to ensure that more particles are there. But the reason why you dip it is because you need to compensate for the spread, because the number of particles, they don't change. They are constant. Area under the graph must remain same at all times. That's why the moment you spread, you also have to dip the peak. Right? So that's the idea. Now, this is not the question. The question is saying, which point could show the number of particles whose energy is the same as the activation energy? Which particles have same activation energy? So it's either B or D. A is wrong because these particles have fewer energy than the EA, and C is wrong because it has more energy than the EA. Now, between B and D, I have to select which one is the correct option. Now, realize that you have decreased the temperature. And when you decrease the temperature, what would happen to the particle, the number of particles which have energy greater or equal than the EA? So the number of particles would decrease. And understand, see, when the graph, this green graph should pass through D, right? I'm going to show it right here because it was a rough sketch. It's going to pass through D like so. So I'm going to make it pass through D. And the moment it passes through D, now you'll see that the white are the number of particles which have energy equal to or greater than the EA compared to the pink. See, pink was more particles having EA, but when you decrease the temperature, white are the number of particles which will have the EA, right? Because the particles which has the EA will now decrease because of a decrease in temperature. So D should be the correct option. Why not B? Because B is effectively showing you an increase in temperature. If the examiner talked about the increase in temperature, then you would say B was the correct option, because when you increase the temperature, more particles have energy equal to or greater than the EA, which would be pink plus yellow. It would be pink plus yellow. See, pink plus yellow, this entire region would be representing the number of particles which have energy equal to or greater than the EA. What if we talked about concentration? What if we talked about concentration? See, the purpose of doing the AS level past papers is not to show you how good I am. I already know D is the correct option. I have to discuss every type of option. What if the examiner asked what would happen to if the graph, if you decrease the concentration or increase the concentration? Remember one thing, sir, if you decrease the concentration or increase the concentration, the graph retains its original shape. The graph retains the original shape. It is just either, it is either stretched or shrinked, but it retains the original shape. Why? Because concentration does not affect the kinetic energy. Concentration does not affect the kinetic energy. That's why you don't need to dip and spread, or you don't need to spike and shrink. No, you just need to make sure that the graph retains the original position. Higher concentration just means more particles will collide with each other. And when more particles collide with each other, let's suppose this was the previous EA, the new EA is this. Why is this the new EA? Why is this the number of particles? The new EA is there. It does not shift the EA, but previously these many particles possessed the activation energy. But with higher concentration, now the green bit is also added to the white bit. Why is the green bit added to the white bit? Because when you increase the concentration of something, when you increase the concentration of particles, you have more particles, and more particles means you have higher frequency of collisions, more frequent collisions, and more frequent collisions would mean more successful collisions. And that would result in what? That would result in forming products. Successful collisions, consequent collisions, the collisions which results in products. And which collisions would be successful? Those collisions in which reactants possess the activation energy, right? So realize that you'll have more particles going into products in case of in case the concentration is increased, but the graph will retain the original shape. Remember, the most probable energy right here, the most probable energy is the same for increase in concentration or decrease in concentration. The most probable energy of particles does not change. Why does it not change? Why does it not change? Acha sir, why have you stretched this graph? Because understand, when you increase the concentration, you don't need to dip it or spread it, right? Don't need to dip or spread it. When you increase the concentration, the reason why the graph is stretched is because now you have more particles. You actuality may, you have more particles. But when you talk about temperature, the number of particles remain the same. That's why when you have to shift on the right hand side, when you increase the temperature and you have to shift, you also need to dip simultaneously to make sure that the area under the graph is the same, right? But in case of concentration, in actuality, the number of particles increases. That's why the graph is a little stretched. But this is the most probable energy. This is the energy that particles possess. This is the energy that particles possess right here. And this is not going to change even if you increase or decrease the concentration. This is increased concentration, this is decreased concentration. Why? Because concentration does not affect the energy of particles. I hope this particular MCQ is crystal clear. I can't slow down, Maham. I have to discuss every single detail. And one more thing, if you were asked to draw this graph, remember this graph right here, it will never touch the x-axis. Never, ever, ever. Remember, it will never touch the x-axis. It will get closer and closer to the x-axis, but never really touch it. It's an asymptote. It's an asymptote. It's, which chapter is this? This is reaction kinetics. It would only, in reality, I'll tell you, in reality, it would only touch at infinity. But your scale never really talks about infinity. So you will make sure that the graph never really touches on the x-axis, and make sure you start from the origin. So I've discussed two ideas with you, but in this particular MCQ, D was the correct option. देखिए, my job is to do half the paper in one day and half the other, but I will make sure to take 20-30 minutes on one particular MCQ. Why asymptote? I already answered it. Because every successive particle has more energy than the previous particle. What timing is this, Pakistan? Yes, it is Pakistan. Crystals of copper 2 nitrate are prepared by adding excess malachite to nitric acid. I don't even know what the hell this is, but he's saying that malachite or malachite has the formula this, okay. CuOH twice dot CuCO3. Remember, always write the equation. So he's saying it reacts with nitric acid. I have to write the equation. Now, what would form? You are expected to know this. Although this particular equation, none of you would have studied this particular equation as part of your AS level course, but you should know this. See, you have an acid. And does it tell you that what forms? It doesn't even tell us what forms. It's just giving us calculations, right? So first I have to write the equation. That's a must. That's a must, right? So how do you write the equation? You see, okay, I have acids are proton donors, and whenever proton donors reacts with hydroxides, it forms water. So you're going to get H2O. This is how I will predict what forms, right? This is how you should predict what forms. So this is how H2O forms. Then I'm going to stop the chat because nobody's really talking about the MCQ. I'm going to make it host and co-host. Anybody has any questions, they will be answered at the end. Okay. So hydrogen of the acid and the OH of the base, they will give you H2O. That's one thing I remember from O-level IGCSE. Then I also know that if you have hydrogen of the acid, if you have protons, it will also react with carbonates. And when protons react with carbonates, that gives me carbon dioxide. Remember? Carbon dioxide and water. Remember? Then what else is going to form? Sir, what else? You have copper and you have nitrate. So the last product is going to be copper nitrate. This is how I predicted what will form. Done. And now you have to balance this particular equation. Now, how do you balance this equation? What do you do? What do you do? Has the examiner told you anything whatsoever? No, he hasn't. The examiner has told me jack shit. Nothing. Nothing by the examiner. So now I start balancing. Remember, start balancing. I start, okay, you have 2 coppers on the left. You only have 1 copper on the right. So I'm going to plug in a beautiful 2 right here. And then after I plugged in a 2, I realized how many nitrates do I need? You have 2 nitrates multiplied by 2. In total, you have 4 nitrates on the right. And I only have 1 nitrate on the left. I then balance nitrates. Done. So this fella is balanced, this fella is balanced, and this fella is balanced. At the end, I just need to balance carbons and hydrogens. How do I balance carbons and hydrogens? You have 1 carbon on the left, you have 1 on the right. So this is already balanced. I'm not going to play with this. And then hydrogens, you have 2 hydrogens on the left and plus 4. You have 6 hydrogens on the left. And how many hydrogens do you have on the right? 2. What should I multiply 2 with to get 6? X is equal to 6 over 2. That's 3. I'm going to insert a 3 here. So this is the balanced equation. Now let's look at the moles and stoichiometry calculation. Remember, the entire difference between O levels and AS level is the fact, in moles and stoichiometry, is the fact that you need to write equations on your own in AS level chemistry. The examiner will never write equations for you. ठीक है, तो आपने खुद लिखनी है. अच्छा, now what is he saying? He is saying 12 grams of malachite is added to this much nitric acid. How much malachite is left unreacted? So it's a pretty easy question. It's simple moles and stoichiometry. You have 12 grams of this and I have to figure out how much left unreacted. For that, I need to find out how much of this actually reacted. And how do I figure out how much of this actually reacted? By taking out the moles of nitric acid. See, you have the volume of nitric acid, you have the concentration of nitric acid, N equals CV. Will give you the moles of nitric acid. How many moles do you get? Concentration is 1.5, volume is 30, but it's in cm cube, converted into dm cube by dividing it by 1000 or multiplying by 10 to the power minus 3. How many moles do you get for nitric acid? Somebody help me out. How many moles do you get? I'm solving these questions for the first time with you all. How many moles of nitric acid do you get? Hanji? 0.045. Thank you. 0.045 moles. I'm relying on you guys. So these are the moles of nitric acid. Now I don't need to find the moles of nitric acid. I need to figure out the moles of malachite. So 4 moles of nitric acid reacted with 1 mole of malachite, right? 4 moles of HNO3 reacted with 1 mole of malachite. I'll write in malachite, whatever, 1 mole. So if you had 0.045 moles of nitric acid, how much malachite would be required? N cross multiply 0.04 divided by 4. What do you get, sir? 0.045 divided by 4. Yeah, this basic calculations is Isam. I can't slow down here. You can watch the recording later on. 0.01125. वरना मैं 2 MCQs भी नहीं कर पाऊंगा. Moles of malachite. These are the moles of malachite. But I need to figure out the mass of malachite left behind. So how do I convert moles into mass? Mass equals mole times molar mass. What's the mass? I need to figure it out. Moles 0.1125 malachite ke moles. Molar mass of malachite is what? He's given it to you. 221 or MR. 221. What is the mass of malachite? Somebody help me out. The mass of malachite, 2.49 grams. So these 2.49 grams are the mass of malachite used. But he's saying what is left behind. 2.49 is used. Those who would have selected 2.49, they would have lost 1 mark. In the entire effort would have been wasted, because he's saying what is left behind. So 12 gram was total minus 2.49. What do you get? 9.51. Done. Now, here's the shortcut for this question. Sir, the dot in malachite doesn't change anything, right? No, it doesn't change anything. It's just there. It's just like they're just two combined, two combined fellas. That's all. It helped me in balancing this. Now, some students may not be able to write the entire balanced equation, and they can actually use a shortcut. See, I don't have to do anything with the products. Why am I balancing the products? I just needed to know how much nitric acid reacted with malachite, because the data for nitric acid was given to me. What is the shortcut for this? Let me teach you the shortcut now. Dekhiye. And these things no teacher is going to teach you, by the way, because this requires a lot of experience as well as a lot of dimagh ka zor, right? Which is this right here. Now, look at how I know that for 1 mole of malachite, how many moles of nitric acid is required. How many moles of nitric acid is required for 1 mole of malachite without even writing the equation for it? Let me teach it to you. Do you guys know? Does anybody know? Does anybody know how to directly do it? Ionic bonding है ना. You want me to teach it to you? You are a genius? No, I'm not a genius. क्या हो गया? So that means I'm cooked organic chem, and no, watch my marathons, Aiza. You need to know organic chem. Acha, does anybody know? How do you directly know? Because no, you don't link it with MR. The Cambridge examiner knows directly. How does the Cambridge examiner know directly? Like, even when I looked at it, I know for 1.4 is required. You know why? You don't have to balance anything. Let me teach it to you. Let me teach it. Okay, see. The thing that you have to do is see nitric acid is required, HNO3. Now, how many moles of nitric acid is required for 1 mole of malachite? It's very easy to understand. Remember O-level IGCC? I have to recall your O-level IGCC before I teach it to you. 1 hydroxide ion requires how many hydrogen ions? 1 hydrogen ions to give you H2O. For 1 hydroxide ion, 1 hydrogen is required, ion is required. So you have 2 hydroxide ions. How many hydrogen ions should be required? 2 hydrogen ions? 2 moles of hydrogen ions right here. And remember in O-levels IGCSE, how many hydrogen ions are required for carbonates? You know, for carbonate, how many hydrogen ions are required? You've studied this ionic equation. For 1 carbonate, 2 hydrogen ions are required to give you carbon dioxide and water. Isn't it? For 1 carbonate ion, you need 2 hydrogen ions to give carbon dioxide and water. Isn't this true? Come on, everybody agrees with me, right? So A carbonate is available here. इसके लिए 2 hydrogen ions and इसके लिए 2 hydrogen ions. So in total you need 4 moles of hydrogen ions, which effectively means you need 4 moles of nitric acid. So I didn't even have to write the equation for it. See, that's the idea. This is how you do it directly. This is how you do it directly. And you could have also done it from the perspective of nitrates. Absolutely. Okay, one copper requires 2 nitrates. You could have also done it from this perspective that one copper requires 2 nitrates. Therefore, 2 coppers would require how many more nitrates? 4 nitrates. So if it requires 4 nitrates, you need 4 HNO3. But again, I would prefer doing it from the perspective of acid because effectively it's HNO3 which is in question, but you could have also done this. So this is how you directly do it, directly do these things without wasting time. That's why students take a lot of time on moles and stoichiometry because they can't, seem to process the entire thought process in their brain quickly. These are the shortcuts that you are supposed to use. Thought concept, I taught you the concept, the shortcut, you need to use it. X and Y are elements from the same group of the periodic table. 5th to 9th ionization, so they must be in the same group. Okay. Now, if they are in the same group, 5th ionization energy for element X is different from element Y, which means what? Which one is at the top of the group and which one is at the bottom of the group? You know, down the group, what happens to ionization energy? If this is an element right here and if this is an element right here, down the group, what happens to the ionization energy? It decreases, doesn't it? Because down the group, what happens? The increase in atomic radii and shielding. The increase in atomic radii and shielding effect outweighs the increase in nuclear charge. So ionization energy decreases, right? What that means is that if Y has a lower ionization energy, Y must be down the group compared to X. X must be at the top. Easy peasy lemon squeeze I. Yes, that's the explanation for theory as well. Now, so I realized that Y should be at the bottom compared to X, right? Then he's given me ionization energy. I need to figure out which group do they belong to. Now, if you look at X, because they belong to same group, even if I do it for X, they'll automatically apply for Y. If you look at X, 5th or 6th ionization, oh my dear sir, there's a big fat jump between the 7th and the 8th ionization energy. The 8th ionization energy is very, 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 very high. What does that mean? That means that the 8th electron, remember, 8th electron is removed. This means that the 8th electron is removed from a shell closer to the nucleus. And you need to not just rote learn this, know what this means. What does this mean? What does this mean, sir? The 8th electron is removed from a shell closer to the nucleus. What in the hell does this mean? This means that the outermost shell must have had 7 electrons. Because if it had 7 electrons, the ionization energy was not shifting as much. It had 7 electrons. The ionization energy increase was not that high. Right? Not that high. There was subtle increase in the ionization energy, but not that high. But the moment when you remove the 8th electron, the ionization energy was pretty high, which meant that the 8th electron is being removed right here from a shell closer to the nucleus. And the reason why the ionization energy is pretty high for that is because now you are closer to the nucleus, the net nuclear attraction is pretty high. So that means the outermost shell must have had 7 electrons. And the 8th electron, अक्सर लोग कहते हैं this is group 8. No, if the 8th electron is removed from the shell closer to the nucleus, that means you had 7 in the outermost shell. Right? So it must be in group 7 or group 17, whatever you like. Group 7 or group 17 doesn't really matter. Group 7, yeah, group 17. Right? So if it is in group 7, that means for a fact that argon, A and D are wrong. And which one is X and which one is Y? Well, we know that Y must be at the bottom. And between fluorine and chlorine, the Y fella should be chlorine and X should be fluorine. Because fluorine has a higher first ionization energy. It does not have a larger atomic radii compared to Cl. And that means X is what? X is F and Y is Cl. I'm doing these MCQs for the first time with you all, guys. This is how you need to think. Sir, should moles MCQs be done at the end? Sure. What I recommend? I recommend taking organic chemistry lectures from the greatest, the king right here. I've also given you marathons on YouTube, but my lectures, if you watch them, I've given like about 35 to 40 lectures on organic chemistry, the largest, most comprehensive, the lengthiest and most comprehensive lectures you will ever find in your entire life. Watch my organic chem lectures, you'll be able to solve every single question in an MCQ. I promise you this. I promise you. And that's why I recommend to my students to first do organic chemistry MCQs. They are easy freebie marks. Easy, easy, easy. Don't delve into calculations. Chhod the calculations ko. And do these simple questions. See, an ion with a charge of 2 minus contains 10 electrons. And that means 10 electrons means what? If it has a charge of 2 minus, it means that if it were an atom, अगर कोई atom था, what would be the number of electrons for it? It must have been 8 electrons. For an atom, if it was not charged, it would have 8 electrons. It's 2 minus now, which means that it has gained 2 electrons, and that is the reason why it has 10 electrons in total, right? It has 2 minus charge, and means it has gained 2 electrons. So in total it has 10 electrons now. But for an atom, it had 8 electrons. And we know for an atom, the number of electrons and protons are equal. That's why atoms do not have an overall charge on them, because the number of protons and electrons are equal in magnitude and opposite in charge, and that's why they cancel out. So 8 electrons means it must have also had 8 protons. And this is basic elementary school knowledge, that the number of protons are effectively what? They're the C and IC number of any element. So you check out the periodic table. This fella has 8 protons. You can even figure out the element you're talking about. But let's call this element X, right? So X has effectively 8 protons. And how many neutrons does it have? It has 14 neutrons. Now, what is the nucleon number? Nucleon number refers to the total number of protons plus neutrons in the nucleus of the atom. Protons are 8, neutrons are 14. What do you get? 8 plus 14. That's 22. B, Ballerino is the answer. Yeah, A-level MCQs are so easy. What is your channel name? My channel is at Carboxyl Chem. That's my channel. Done. Next, the structure of the hormone histamine is shown. Okay, which row contains bond angles X? Or let's figure out bond angles. Chalo, let's do this. Now, nitrogen, remember, the examiner will never ever on the face of planet Earth, the examiner will never show you guys the lone pairs. You have to imagine them and write them. So nitrogen is in group 5. It has made 3 bonds. It must also have a lone pair. And you know that whenever there's a lone pair, it squeezes these 3 bonds even further. So there's the lone pair. Nitrogen is right here, is bonded to one hydrogen, the other hydrogen, and one of this CC bit, right? I call this R. This entire fella is I'm calling it R. Now, what is the bond angle here? It's very simple to know the bond angles. How do you sign up for my classes? Rabia, you just contact Miss Naiva. This is Miss Naiva's number. You can take the screenshot right here. +923181772015. And the next, let's come back. So basically, how do you think about this? I've taught you guys a very easy way to remember bond angles. You know that if there was no lone pair here, my students and all of you should also know that if there was no lone pair here, this would have been a bond. And if it were a bond, it would be called tetrahedral with an angle of 109.5. But here, unfortunately or fortunately, there is a lone pair. What that means is the bond angle would be squeezed in a little more, because the lone pair exhibits a greater repulsion compared to a double bond or a triple bond or a single bond. Right? So the bond angle is going to be squeezed in a little more. You're going to go towards about 107 degrees Celsius, or Celsius, 107 degrees, right? And then what would be the name for it? See, it looks like a pyramid. And because the base is tri, it's a tree base. It looks like a pyramid, a tri base. So we call this trigonal because of 3 bonds, trigonal. And because it looks like a pyramid, we call this trigonal pyramidal. That's how you actually solve such questions. How easy. So 107 is X. 107 degrees, roughly. Then C, carbon has made 4 bonds. It has no lone pair. And we know that when it makes 4 bonds, it's called tetrahedral, no lone pair, 109.5 degrees. And Z, look at Z. Carbon has made 4 bonds, but bonds are 4. But remember, bonds pe nahi hota sirf. It's the atoms. It's bonded to 3 atoms right here. Bonds are 4, but the electron domains are 3. 1, 2, 3 electron domains. It's like a fan. 3 electron domains, no lone pair. And whenever this is a 3 electron domain, no lone pair, it's called trigonal because 3 bonds right here. Electron domains, and it's called planar. All the bonds lie in the same plane. And what's the bond angle? It's 120 because they are all equally away from each other. You just do 360 divided by 3, 120. That's how you can remember it. Yes, I know that the double bond will slightly, result in a larger force on this, and this would be slightly greater than 120, but who cares? Nobody cares. But for now, I just call this 120. So Z is the largest bond angle, therefore C and D option are wrong. Smallest bond angle is X, not Y, and therefore B is wrong, is the correct option. This is how MCQs must be done. मजा आ रहा है आप लोगों को? अच्छा, I'm gonna open the everyone chat, but please stop whining in the everyone chat. Just talk with regard to this particular question, please. I'm gonna answer all your questions. You can contact me on my personal number +92 333 569 4666. Please. I beg you guys to just stay relevant. Electron domains kya hai? I've taught this Shahir in my live classes, but forget about it. Whoever you've studied from, I don't know how they've taught it, but it has to do with electron geometry and molecular geometry. I can't go on teaching that, लेकिन बस आप इसको ऐसे ही याद कर लीजिए, मैं क्या कह सकता हूँ. Right. अच्छा, next. Why is y not 90? कम ऑन यार, ये कौन कह रहे हैं why is y not 9? मरियम, मरियम not good यार. मरियम, why are you looking at the structural form of it? You always have to think from the 3D perspective. The examiner will never give you the 3D shape for it. You have to draw the shape on your own. This is actually how it looks. You know, these are the bonds x, y, z. It's tetrahedral. The examiner will never show you this shape. If it shows you this shape, you can automatically see it's tetrahedral. ठीक है ना? एन ऑर्गेनिक एसिड ए लेवल्स में बेटा सबके अंग अंग निकल आ जाते हैं, क्योंकि यार पढ़ा नहीं होता ना सही से, और ना पढ़ाया होता है. टीचर्स भी मनहूस जो है मजाक कर रहे होते हैं. Ali Singh, well, in the part of session, will we have access to the lessons as well? If we have missing Ali, unfortunately, no. मैराथन्स दो तीन हैं, वो ऐड हो जाएंगे. मैराथन्स जो ऑर्गेनिक केम का मैराथन है, इनऑर्गेनिक का एक छोटा सा मैराथन है, वो एडेड हो जाएंगे, वो मैं लगा दूंगा. बट नॉट ऑल द लेक्चर्स, बिकॉज अ लॉट ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स हैव पेड लाखों रुपए थ्रू आउट द ईयर. यू नो, आई हैव टॉट देम फॉर 8 months. They've paid more than 100,000 rupees. It'll be injustice to them, right? Yeah. मैं ये जरा हेडफोन बदल दूं. Yeah, it has all the reactions, Laiba. So when the organic acid reacts with an alcohol, a reversible reaction takes place. An ester and water is formed. See, he even told you that an ester and water is formed. Now, I'll write alcohol, I'll write acid. They react and form ester plus H2O or water, whatever. I think zero point 0.4 moles. Okay, so basically he's asking me to calculate Kc, which is the concentration equilibrium constant, right? And how do you calculate Kc? You use the ice tables. The initial moles, the change in moles, and the moles at equilibrium. Now the examiner is telling you at equilibrium you have 0.20 moles of ester produced. So at equilibrium you have 0.20 moles of ester produced. Initially, how many moles of ester do you have? Initially, bilkul at the start, zero. Products initially are always zero, unless the examiner states otherwise, right? So zero ester, zero H2O. How much alcohol did you have? So he mixed 0.4 moles of the organic acid, zero point 0.4 moles here, and he mixed 0.3 moles of the alcohol. These are the initial idea with us, right? Now, if you have 0.2 moles of ester at equilibrium, that means that the ester increased by 0.2. And obviously, remember, these are all in 1:1:1:1, right? Every time when an alcohol and an acid reacts, ester and water forms, everything forms in 1:1, right? So the change is what? The change is of +202. That's the change. I'm even going to put a line here. And if this is the change of the ester, since they are all in 1:1, you will also have water going into water increasing by plus 0.2, because everything is 1:1, right? So water would also increase by plus 0.20. What's the ratio of ester and acid? It's 1:1. So this fella would increase, no decrease, because reactants decrease. So this would be minus 0.2, and this would also be minus 0.2. This would be the change. Remember, the change, this part always comes from the ratios of the balanced equation. Remember this. And reactants always decrease, therefore a negative sign. Products always increase. So can you guys tell me the moles at equilibrium? This is the moles at equilibrium is 0.20. This is zero point 0.4 minus 0.20, it's 0.20, 0.3 minus 0.20, 0.10. These are the moles at equilibrium. And now you know you have to find the concentration at equilibrium, because Kc is the concentration of these fellas at equilibrium, the concentration of products raised to their coefficients divided by the concentration of reactants raised to their coefficients. But remember, because you have there everything is in 1:1. See, 1 mole of alcohol, 1 mole of acid, 1 mole of ester, 1 mole of water. Kc has no units. Why does it have no units? Because see, concentration per dm cube for ester and concentration per dm cube for H2O, right? So this will give you molar square, and reactants ka concentration raised to their coefficients, this will be m square as well. So this cancels out with this, you effectively have no units in Kc. And whenever you have no units, there's no need to divide by volume. If you want, you can divide this by V, this by V, this by V, this by V, but it would just make your complications, it would just make your, calculations a little complex. You just know that if you divide this by V, this by V, and this by V and this by V, V cuts out with V cuts out with V. So there's no point in dividing by V or anything, right? So what's the Kc value for it? The moles are effectively also the concentration. What's the Kc value? So products raised to their coefficient, you have 0.20 multiplied by 0.20 raised to the power 1 multiplied by 0.20 raised to the power 1. Effectively, you can also write it 0.20 squared, and then 0.10 multiplied by 0.20 raised to the power 1 and 1. What do you get Kc as? Yes, everything 1 mole, 1 mole, 1 mole, 1 mole. What do you get Kc as? Anybody? Can somebody help me? 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And we have 2 right here. C is the correct option. Next. Information about two substances are given. This is O-level IGCSE MCQ, by the way. Just by looking at it, it's O-level IGCSE. It says P is a good electrical conductor when solid and molten. Can P be ionic? No, because ionic compounds do not conduct electricity in solid state because they don't have any free moving ions. So P can't be ionic. P should be metallic. In my opinion, P should be metallic, right? It should be metallic. Or you could also think about it like this. If P is graphite, graphite can also conduct electricity. So it can be graphite, can be metallic, whatever. But he's saying when you react it with water, it reacts vigorously to give alkaline solution. No, graphite does not react with water to give alkaline solution. So it can be graphite. It is in fact metallic. See, my initial observation was right. And has a high melting point as well. So giant metallic lattice hoga. So P should be not simple molecular, because simple molecular, first of all, normally simple molecular substances that you have, they normally give you acidic solutions, but we don't even care about that. Simple molecular isliye nahi ho sakta because simple molecular substances are poor electrical conductors and they don't really have a very high melting point. So giant ionic isliye nahi ho sakta because ionic compounds do not conduct in solid state. So B and C are wrong. Between A and D I have to select. Now what is Q? Q saying it does not conduct in any state. So it can't be ionic, can't be ionic. So either ionic hai, bilkul ji. D is wrong because Q can't be ionic. Ionic compounds do conduct in aqueous state and in molten state. It must be simple molecular because simple molecular are poor electrical conductors like chlorine. This is how you do MCQs. I am not doing anything, man. This is how you should even practice at home. In the exam, you could do quick things. But when you practice at home, please do every single MCQ with what's it called? Please do every single MCQ with the utmost clarity or khamosh. Acha, why is the melting point pretty high? Because I guess, I don't know why it's that high, but probably it's going to be a simple molecular substances with certain type of bonding. Maybe PD-PD interactions बहुत ज़्यादा होंगे ना. PD-PD interactions, maybe it has a lot of electrons, so ID-ID interaction is also going to be high. It's a polar molecule as well. So that can be the reason. But he's also saying it reacts vigorously to produce an acidic solution. Achha, you guys tell me, which simple molecular substances react vigorously to give you acidic solution? कोई आपने पढ़ा हुआ है? आपको पता है इधर से भी मैं ये डिड्यूस कर सकता हूं इट कैन बी सिलिकॉन सी यू माइट इवन थिंक सर इट डज नॉट कंडक्ट इन एनी स्टेट राइट यू माइट इवन थिंक इट डज नॉट कंडक्ट इन एनी स्टेट अच्छा मे बी इफ आई वर द एग्जामिनर डू यू नो व्हाट आई वुड डू इफ आई वर द एग्जामिनर इंस्टेड ऑफ राइटिंग जायंट आयोनिक हियर आई वुड राइट जायंट कोवेलेंट हियर then how do you know? Then I have to look at the other option. He's saying it reacts vigorously to produce an acidic solution. The giant covalent structures or the giant molecular structures that I have in my course is silicon or SiO2 or it's diamond or it's graphite, and neither of these dissolve in water. See, it says it reacts vigorously with water. Neither of these react with water. Neither. And simple molecular, we've studied a lot of them, like P4O10, like what else? SO2, like SO3. When you react them with water, what happens? When you react them with water, what happens? An acidic solution forms. P4O10 gives you what? P4O10 gives you what? It gives you phosphoric acid. SO2 gives me what? SO2 ka negative ion is SO3 2 minus. So it gives you sulfurous acid or sulfuric 4 acid. But it's better to call it sulfuric. SO3 ka negative ion. Increase one oxygen and put a 2 minus charge. It's H2SO4. Sulfuric acid. They all give you acidic solutions right here. So it must be simple. And that's why it has a high melting point. See, because of a lot of electrons. Maybe it's P4O10. If I'm guessing, I think my guess would normally be with P4O10. That's my guess. Just saying. I don't know what it is, but just guessing. मजा आ रहा है सवाल करके. This recording will be uploaded on my YouTube because this is a demo. Sir, if somebody hasn't studied the course with you, will the course be revised in yearly? See, I am revising the course, Maham, am I not? In the yearly session, I think the Mr. Beast had. No, I was wearing this before, way before. Mom, am I not revising the course slowly and gradually? मैं कर तो रहा हूँ, चीजें बता रहा हूँ. ऐसी चीजें इतने डिटेल में कौन बताता है? You tell me, Maham. Is there any teacher in the market who's going into such details discussing every single possibility? No, I know there isn't. That's the differentiating factor, isn't it? Yeah. An excess of zinc reacts with xcm cube of this much concentration. So X is the volume. I don't know the volume. He's given me the concentration of hydrochloric. See, I start annotating the moment I start reading things. We have so little time, sir. What should we do for organic? Then watch the marathons, Raima. And then in marathons, if you don't understand something, then go and watch that particular lecture only. The gas produced is dried and collected. Now see, again, it's a moles and stoichiometry questions. It's a mole and stoichiometry question. Hello, what should we do in a moles and stoichiometry question first? Shabash, you guys tell me, what should we do in moles and stoichiometry question first? Should we start looking at the values or should we kill ourselves? What should we do? We should always first write the balanced equation, always, right? So it's saying zinc reacts with hydrochloric acid. Let's write the balanced equation. Zinc plus HCl gives me zinc chloride. Zinc is more reactive than the hydrogen of the acid. It displaces it. Zinc chloride forms plus H2. I hope you know zinc chloride is ZnCl2 because zinc makes a 2 plus ion. Cl is 1 minus cross multiply. This happens, right? And you just add a 2 here. So for 1 mole of zinc, 2 moles of HCl were required. So I've automatically written the balanced equation. That's good. Now I think the gas that is produced, which gas is produced? It's hydrogen gas that is produced right here. This fella is produced. Now I think this fella occupies this much volume. This pascals is the pressure and you have temperature. He's given me the pressure, he's given me the temperature, and he's given me the volume. What comes to your brain? PTV. What comes to your brain? Sir, PV equals nRT. Because if I'm able to figure out the moles of hydrogen through this, once I figure out the moles of hydrogen, what does he want? He wants the value of X. So once I figure out the moles of hydrogen, I can jump from the moles of hydrogen to the moles of hydrochloric acid. Once I have the moles of hydrochloric acid, I have the concentration, I have the moles, I can figure out X by N equals CV. Can't I? Now, how do you use PV is equal to nRT? P is pressure. It is 101 1000. V is the volume. Remember, volume for PV equals nRT must be in meter cube. Pressure is in pascals and temperature must be in Kelvin. Remember, and this is in Kelvin. What if this was not in Kelvin? Then, if let's suppose he said it's 25 degrees Celsius, then what would you do? You would add 25 to 273, right? This is what you would do. Having said that, let's convert dm cube into meter cube. If you ever forget dm cube into meter cube, what do? You say 1 meter equals D means deci. Deci stands for 10, right? Decade. 1 meter equals 10 decimeter. 1 meter cube equals 10 to the power 10 decimeter to the power of cube. If you add cube, you have to add on both sides. So 1 meter cube equals 1000 dm cube, don't you? So if you have 1.534 dm cube, how many meter cube do you have? X cross multiply. What do you get? 1.534 multiplied by 10 is to the power minus 3 or divided by 1000. Right? It's the same thing. So this is in the volume in meter cube. So let's start plugging this in. 1.5. And this is all of these things you should start doing in calculators. Bhai, ye likhna nahi hai paper pe. You don't have to write this in the paper. Just quickly do these things in calculator. N find karna R is 8.31 given at the back of your paper. T is what? 293. Can you guys plug this in the calculator and figure out N? Please directly plug it in the calculator. Don't do any steps whatsoever. Just plug it in the calculator. How many moles do you get? 0.06363. अपनी मैथ की स्किल्स झाड़ने की जरूरत इस टाइम पे नहीं है. These are the moles of hydrogen. Now I don't need the moles of hydrogen. What do I need? I need the moles of HCl. Now you know 1 mole of hydrogen is made from 2 moles of HCl. So it's 1:2. 1 mole of hydrogen, 2 moles of HCl. So if you have these many moles of hydrogen, how many moles of HCl would be required? Cross multiplied, sir. X equals just multiplied by 2. 2 multiplied by this answer right here, which is 0.6363. What do you get? How many moles of HCl do you get? Why am I calling it X? I should call it N because I like N better. How many moles of HCl do we get? 2 times answer. 2 times answer. How many? यार आंसर मत बताएं, मोल्स बताएं मुझे HCl के. जी 0.12726. 0.12 726. These are the moles of HCl. Now N equals CV. You need to find, you got the moles, 1.2726 equals concentration you have, which is what? Which is in mole per dm cube, which is 2, multiplied by V, which is x equals whatever this is, 0.12726 divided by 2. क्या आ रहा है जी? क्या आ रहा है जी? What do you get? Acha, he's asking the answer in centimeter cube, and you're gonna get the answer here in dm cube because the concentration was in dm cube, right? So what do? I'm also gonna multiply it by 1,000. I hope you guys know that converting cm cube into dm cube into cm cube multiplied by 1,000, right? Multiply by 1,000 cm cube. Directly बता दें, शाबाश, directly बताएं. Sir, C is the answer. Answer मत बताएं ना. 63.63 आ रहा है, which is gonna be what? C है. 66.63.6 है. 63.63 आ रहा है. हाँ, that's closer to C. So C is the correct option. Great. Then see, look at the number of mole questions. सर मुझे आप इग्नोर कर रहे हैं. ओहो, सर अब्बास इज हियर. सर अब्बास, अस्सलाम वालेकुम. मेरे सर अब्बास को हम अनम्यूट का ऑप्शन देते हैं. सर अब्बास यार, मैं सिर्फ 7 एमसीक्यूज किए हैं. सर अब्बास, सर को हम अनम्यूट करते हैं. सर क्या हाल है आपके?
अल्लाह का शुक्र सर, टेंशन ना ले। मैंने भी पूरे 1 घंटे में तकरीबन मेरे ख्याल से 12 MCQ आज करवाए हैं, 12 ही करवाए हैं।
एएस वाले
और
बच्चों को?
एएस वाले सर, मैं तो बहुत इन डेप्थ चला गया, 13 करवाए हैं। देखें वो कह रहे हैं
ओह,
खुद ही। मैं तो
13
सर
करोड़.
बहुत इन डेप्थ चला गया था। मैं तो एक एक सवाल के पीछे इनको 6 6 और सवाल सिखाए हैं आज।
बस
एंड में
फिर
खुद ही तंग आ गया। टेंशन नहीं है
सर मैं कह
सर।
रहा हूँ कि
बाकी सर
बदस्ती
ये एएस
खत्म
की
करो.
क्लास में, ये एएस की क्लास में बच्चे बड़े कम आते हैं। ओ लेवल में आज मेरे 200 क्रॉस थे, मैंने देखा आपके 300 क्रॉस हैं। ये शहजादे माशाल्लाह आते ही नहीं है क्लास में, ये क्या हिसाब है इनका?
असल में ये इसलिए नहीं आते क्योंकि ये लोग कह रहे हैं हमने रिपीट करने और आपसे पढ़ने. इनमें से बहुत से बच्चों ने दे हैवंट स्टडीड फ्रॉम अस, दे आर लाइक यार सर रिपीट करके आपसे पढ़ेंगे. तो मैं कहता हूँ चलो अच्छी बात
इंशाल्लाह
है.
इंशाल्लाह।
अल्लाह ना करे सर, इंशाल्लाह क्यों बोल रहे हैं? अल्लाह ना करे फेल हो,
सर
अस्तगफिरुल्लाह
आप
बोले.
अपना बिजनेस देखें सर, आप बिजनेस अपना
नहीं
चमकाएं
नहीं सर, अल्लाह
हमारे।
माफ करे. नहीं नहीं, एट द एक्सपेंस ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स तो नहीं करते. सर अब्बास गाइस इज ए फिजिक्स टीचर और ही इज द पार्टनर इन कॉन्सेप्चुअल. सीईओ भी सर अब्बास ही हैं कॉन्सेप्चुअल के. सीएफओ भी सर हैं, सीईओ भी सर है, सी
एमडी
और
बेसिकली मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर।
एमडी भी सर अब्बास है. सर अब्बास इज द किंग. फिजिक्स के सेशंस कल भी सर अब्बास है. जिन्होंने नहीं ली क्लास जरूर देखिएगा. बस सर, और मैं क्या कहूँ, और आपकी तारीफ
सर
जितनी
आप
करूँ कम
भाई,
है.
सर आप भी बेस्ट हैं सर। सब सर से भी क्लास लें, ठीक है, क्लासेस
वो
कराएं।
तो सर ले रहे हैं अभी भी. चलिए सर, इंशाल्लाह गपशप लगाते हैं फिर. ओके सर जी, सी यू बाय. सर आवाज यार किंग बनने, लेजेंड है, लेजेंड. सर आवाज लेजेंड यार. हमारी दोस्ती बड़ी गहरी ना. सर पढ़ा दें. अच्छा मर क्यों रहे हैं, पढ़ा देता हूँ. मरे तो मत. ऐड आ गया क्लास के दौरान लगता है. ग्रेट टीचर्स, हाँ ऐड ही तो है. ब्रोमैंस. अच्छा डोंट लामफाओ प्लीज. मरियम प्लीज डोंट लामफाओ. प्लीज, प्लीज माम, प्लीज. Yes, Aisha, please don't lamao. One is lamaoing, one is lamfaoing. I don't know what you guys are doing. What are you? मर जाएंगे. exhausting शुरू करें. अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा. An aqueous solution of hydrogen peroxide is placed in a flask and decomposes as shown. The total volume of oxygen evolved is 180 cm cube in 90 seconds. Measured under room conditions. Under room conditions, if oxygen is formed, your volume of oxygen, you can easily use V is equal to N times 24,000 because it's room conditions, right? To convert volume of oxygen into moles of oxygen. I'm just saying, I don't know what the examiner is going to say, but this is what came to my brain. He's saying, and he's saying the rate of reaction is calculated change in moles of H2O2. अब बताएं जी क्या करूं? Again, क्या करूं? क्या करूं? Write the balanced equation first, and the balanced equation is already given to you. So what do? You literally just convert the volume into moles. You get the moles of oxygen. From the moles of oxygen, figure out the moles of H2O2. You got the moles of H2O2. Time should be in minutes. So 90 seconds is 1.5 minutes. Done. खत्म भाई. इसमें क्या है? V is equal to, इसमें मतलब क्या है? कैलकुलेशन है यार. N times 24,000. Why 24,000? Because it's in cm cube. If it was in dm cube, then I would do 24 dm cube. ये बड़ा बेसिक सा सवाल है, ये मत पूछे मेरे से. N times 24,000. N is equal to, मैं डायरेक्ट कन्वर्ट कर रहा हूँ इसलिए 180 डिवाइडेड बाय, सॉरी फॉर माई पैथेटिक राइटिंग, 180 डिवाइडेड बाय 24,000. व्हाट डू यू गेट? कोई दिमाग खुल रहा है किसी का कि नहीं? मर मुर रहे हैं. 7.5 into 10 is power minus 3 moles. Done. These are the moles of oxygen. Now from the moles of oxygen I need to go to H2O2. 1 mole was made from 2 moles. So it's 1:2. जितने moles ये होंगे twice as much H2O2 का. Now start doing in your brains, right? ये moles of O2 है, multiplied by 2 करूंगा तो moles of H2O2 आ जाएंगे. बताएं जी कितने moles हैं H2O2 के? बताएं जी, बताएं. शाबाश, आप डायरेक्ट बताएं. 0.015 moles. थैंक यू. These are the moles of H2O2. You got the moles of H2O2 divided by the time. So 0.015 moles of H2O2 divided by time, which is 90 seconds. जी ये भी बता दें 60 seconds जो 60 seconds 1 minute होता है, तो 90 seconds कितने minute होंगे? X cross multiply x is equal to 90 over 60, which is what? 0 cuts out, which is 1.5 minutes. अगर ऐसे कर लें यार 30 सेकंड, अब 90 सेकंड का मतलब है 1 minute और 30 सेकंड, so 1.5 minutes प्लीज़। मतलब ये कन्वर्जन तो बड़ी बेसिक सी कन्वर्जन है। एवरीबडी सिंग डी 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 डी, लेट्स गो। So 0.010, what? 0.010, that's the rate of reaction. So D mole per minute. Yes, that's the unit, because see, on top you have moles, at the bottom you have minutes. So it's mole minute minus, nobody cares. Next, methanol is manufactured by reacting carbon dioxide and hydrogen together. What increases the equilibrium yield of methanol in this process? How do you increase methanol? Because this is a basic O-level IGCSE question again. Increasing the temperature favors fewer gaseous moles. Remember, fewer gaseous moles, not any moles, fewer gaseous moles. Le Chatelier's principle, right? So fewer gaseous moles are on which hand side? So you have 3 plus 1. You have 4 moles on the left, and you have 1 plus 1. You have 2 moles on the right. So fewer gaseous moles are on the right hand side. And therefore, would the yield of methanol increase? Yes, fewer gaseous moles are on the right hand side. Therefore, the equilibrium position would shift to the right and more products would form. And methanol is this fellow right here. So yes, increasing pressure would increase. Adding excess steam. When you add excess steam, the Chatelier's principle says that the system will counteract this change. The system will act as to oppose this change. And once it opposes this change, it will want to decrease H2O. How? By favoring the left, by shifting the equilibrium to the left hand side and making more reactants, right? So it would decrease methanol, because when you add this, if the position of the equilibrium shift to the left, all of this would start to decompose into back into this. Adding a catalyst has no impact on the position of the equilibrium. It only increases the rate of the reaction. Increasing the temperature favors endothermic, which is, see, he's given you the enthalpy change, which is minus 49. So forward is exo, backward is endo. Minus means exo, right? So it favors endo, which is the reverse reaction, which is the reverse, and that's why equilibrium would shift to the left hand side and methanol yield would decrease. It is wrong. We need to increase it. Next, the equation for the reaction थोड़ा ज्यादा हो गया यार, थोड़ा ज्यादा हो गया। Yeah, बताइए नहीं, who is saying true R, true R, सन मरियम इंस्टा दे दो। अरे मर जाओ यार, अरे मर मुर जाओ कहीं, इंस्टा दे दो। शर्म ठरकपन की कोई हद होती है? इधर आगे भी ठरकपन शुरू की हुई है, मतलब पढ़ने के लिए आप आए हो, इंस्टा मांग रहे हो। कोई सही तरीका तो, मतलब बंदा हलाल तरीके में बंदा प्रो इंस्टा दे दो। आपकी नौकर लगी हुई है मरियम की, इंस्टा देगी आपको? तोबा करें, अभी रमजान खत्म हुए हैं और अली माशाल्लाह जो है, अली को आज़ाद कर दिया गया। मतलब कैसी कैसे काम हो रहे हैं इधर हैं। यार आप लोग ए लेवल्स में तो कम से कम थोड़ी बहुत लेवरेज मुझे दे दिया करें। सॉरी, प्लीज डोंट कैंसिल मी, आई एम जस्ट स्टेटिंग फैक्ट्स। Rahima, such a beautiful phrase. Rahima is saying, laughing my abaya off. Great. Hmm. यार मार दो मुझे, जान से मार दो, ये कराने दो मुझे, बच्चे रो रहे हैं। एग सिंह सर पढ़ा दे। एग हमेशा कहते हैं सर आप डिस्ट्रैक्ट बड़ी जल्दी हो जाते हैं। अच्छा, 10 out of 10 तो एमसीक्यूज हो गए। ऐसे अगर हम करते रहे तो 4 दिनों में एक पेपर सॉल्व होगा। तो प्लीज आधा तो करने दें मुझे। द इक्वेशन फॉर द रिएक्शन KClO3 is shown. What is the oxidation number of Cl? Please don't say कि अच्छा this is +1, this would be -2, and you have 3 oxygens, so -2. ऐसे मत किया करें इसको. This is not how I'd recommend. I'd recommend splitting these two. KClO3 has ClO3 minus, right? What is Cl? Cl is X. Oxygen is always -2. Remember, what is the oxidation number of oxygen? It's -2. And you have 3 oxygens, so times it by 3. Can you guys tell me, is the oxidation number of oxygen is ClO3, the chlorate ion, is the oxidation number -6 or -2 for oxygen? हाँ जी, कौन बताएगा? -6 or -2? And then yes, thank you students, thank you students. It's -2, absolutely. It isn't -6. -6 इसलिए बन जाता है कि each oxygen has the oxidation number of -2, -2, -2. That's why you multiply it by 3, right? Instead of saying -2, -2, -2, you just multiply by 3. Oxidation number, remember, is always for one of anything, not for 3. The reason why I multiplied by 3 is to add everything and to equal it to the charge on this ion. which is -1 to figure out x. So x minus 6 equals -1. You should know chlorate is -1. If you didn't, that's how the formula is. See, for one potassium ion, one chlorate ion is required. That's why it's KClO3. So you should have known. Please, these coefficients have no value in calculating oxidation numbers. So x is equal to what? -6 उधर जाके क्या होगा? +5 हो जाएगा. So here it's +5. In KCl, it's -1, chloride ion in group 7. KClO4 minus, what do you have? Why is this minus? Because K has plus, ClO4 is minus. That's why the formula is KClO4. I looked at the formula, I realized that chlorate must be minus. So X, this is X. I don't know, oxygen is -2, times it by 4, because you have 4 of these fellas. Add them all together, and the overall oxidation number of any ion is its charge. X minus 8 equals -1, and X equals +7. So this fella is plus, oh, it's a disproportionation reaction. Kaboom! It's a disproportionation reaction because remember, see, look, you went from +5 to -1 in one place and from +5 to +7 in one place. And what is a disproportionation reaction? A disproportionation reaction is a reaction in which an element, you need to know the definition, an element in a single species is simultaneously oxidized and reduced. See, an element in a single species, this element in a single species is simultaneously oxidized and reduced. And remember, a tip for disproportionation reaction is that you must have at least 3 oxidation numbers. It is a must. See, one is the starting one is the lower one is the higher one. That's also a trick for it. But nobody cares. So is this disproportionation? Yes. What is the oxidation number of Cl in ClO4? It's +7, and the B as the B for balls. Yeah. Next G. A student mixes 25 cm cube of 0.1 mole sodium hydroxide solution where 25 cm cube of 0.1 mole of sodium hydroxide is mixed with HCl. What forms? NaCl. It's a neutralization reaction plus H2O. Acid-base neutralization reaction. Right? Remember, neutralization reaction takes place when an alkali reacts with an acid. If it's an insoluble base, remember this. If I say, hey, magnesium carbonate reacts with HCl, is this an acid-base reaction? The answer is yes, it's an acid-base reaction. But is this a neutralization reaction? The answer is no, because for it to be a neutralization reaction, the base that you're using must be soluble. That's how Cambridge has clubbed it. This is not effectively the correct version for it, but 9701 course curriculum and even 0620 and even 5070, they have standardized neutralization for you all. Right? So this is not effectively true to much extent. University level में आप असलियत सीखेंगे, मुझे पता है लेकिन वो मैं बता नहीं रहा अभी, जरूरत नहीं है. But realize that neutralization only takes place when acid and alkali react. If a base and acid react, it will be acid-base reaction, but not neutralization. Remember that. Keep that in mind. Right? Like just like if I say copper oxide plus HCl, this is an acid-base reaction, but not neutralization, because this is insoluble. Having said that, let's move on to the question. Now he's saying there is a temperature rise of 2.50 degrees Celsius. What's the enthalpy change? Now, for enthalpy change, what is this reaction? This is enthalpy change of neutralization, isn't it? And how do you calculate enthalpy change of neutralization? Remember, in any enthalpy change experiments, मैंने ये बहुत clear पढ़ा है, बहुत simple है. Every experiment will follow the same trend. The first thing that you do is figure out how much heat is transferred to or from water. Neutralization is normally exothermic, right? So how much heat is transferred to or from water? See, he's even giving you minus sign. Now, how do you realize water ka heat kitna to or from hua hai? That is Q is equal to mc delta T. Remember, this is always from the perspective of water. The question is, sir, there is no water here. Oh, you dumbo jumbo mumbo, there is water. The water is present in the form of an alkali and the form of an acid. 25 plus 25, that's 50. And remember, the mass of water and volume of water is the same, right? So even you write 50 here in the form of M, or you could call it Vc delta T. It's the same thing. Mc delta T, Vc delta T, it's the same thing. So it's 50 cm cube or 50 grams, because the density of water is 1 gram per cm cube, right? So the mass and volume is the same. Then with C, what is C? Can somebody tell me the specific heat capacity? What is specific 4.182? And what is change in T? The change in T is 2.5 rise. See, there's a rise of 2.5, which means it's an exothermic reaction. Water took in heat. If water took in heat, water is effectively your surrounding. Remember, always remember, water is my surrounding. So if water took in heat, this means that heat was transferred to water. Heat was transferred to the surrounding, and that's what happens in exothermic. The change in temperature is 2.5 degrees Celsius. That's the change. Instead of giving, see, he's saying temperature rise itna hai. So that's effectively the change. How much heat has been transferred to water? How much heat, please? 50 times 4.18 plus 2.5. Somebody tell me, please. How much heat is transferred to water? जी जनाब, जी जनाब. It is 5 to 2.5 joules, not kilojoules, joules. Specific heat capacity joules में दी होती है हमें, right? This is joules. But whenever you calculate enthalpy change, this should be in kilojoules. It's Q over N. Right? Q over N, Q over N. Now, what is Q? And I'm going to put a minus sign because it's exothermic, because water took in heat. Water is the surrounding. When surrounding takes in heat, it's exo. Minus Q. Q should always be in kilojoules. So please convert 5.225 into kilojoules. It should be 0.5225 kilojoules per mole. What is this mole? Remember, these are the moles of water. Always remember this. Neutralization is for 1 mole of water forming. These are the moles of water that you need to add. Now the question is, sir, we have to take volume of element which is no, both the volumes we have to take. यार water देखिए, heat taken in by water acid की form में भी alkyl की form में भी है. गलत concept है भाई. हमेशा whatever is in your exam, whatever is given to you, and enthalpy change, whenever you want to calculate the heat transfer to or from water, it should always be from the perspective of water and nothing else. Just think about water, kitna water, right? That's all. Now it's saying it's enthalpy change of neutralization is always for mole of water formed, right? For 1 mole of water formed. So how do you figure out the moles of water? You figure it out from the balanced equation. And from the, how do you figure out the moles of water from balanced equation? Sir, first of all, both the data that are given to you, you are given data of sodium hydroxide and you are given data of hydrochloric acid. And if you balance the equation, you know that for 1 mole of sodium hydroxide, 1 mole of hydrochloric acid is required, and 1 mole of NaCl forms and 1 mole of water forms. Now remember, always remember this, that when you want to figure out the moles of water, first of all, how do you figure out the moles of water? Do I convert sodium hydroxide ki moles into moles and figure out moles of water, or do I convert hydrochloric acid convert the hydrochloric acid ka data and figure out the moles and find out water? Which one should I use? Always use the limiting reactant. But since both the data are exactly the same and they both require 1:1, we know that there's no limiting or excess reactant here. Both, you can either calculate moles from this or from this and figure out the moles of water. So can somebody figure out the moles for sodium hydroxide for now? But remember, first you have to figure out if these data were different, then you would have figured out the moles of each, and then you would say, okay, which one is in excess? The one that would have been excess, you wouldn't use that to figure out the moles of water. The one that would be limiting, you would use that to figure out the moles of water then. Right? So always remember, we have to jump to this part. So N is equal to CV. Here we can use anything. Concentration is 0.1, volume is 25, times that by 10 is 1 minus 3, because convert it into dm cube. What do you get? 0.0025 moles. These are the moles of water. No, these are not the moles of water. These are the moles of NaOH or HCl. But remember, since they are in 1:1, I can even call it moles of water, right? Because इसके जो moles होंगे वो इसी के moles हैं, इसके जो moles होंगे वो इसी के moles हैं. Yeah. Too much effort for 1 mark? No, Iman. I have to put in too much effort for 1 mark. You guys can do this in 15 seconds if you're concentrating. My job is to teach you every single thought process. It's not too much effort. You can do this literally in 15 seconds on a calculator. Acha ji. So how many moles did you get? 0.0025. What do you get? And put a negative sign, obviously, exothermic. What do you get? Minus 209 kilojoule per mole. Minus 209. It's not joule, it's kilojoule per mole. A is the correct option. What is he saying, sir? How do you know the formula of the products in these kinds of questions? No, Wasim, this is O-level IGCC. What do you mean? How do I know the formula? NaCl कैसे बनता है? Sodium makes a 1 plus ion, Cl makes a 1 minus ion. So sodium chloride का formula for 1 sodium ion, 1 chloride ion is required. That's why it's NaCl. Sir, do you suggest leaving these MCQs for the end? No. ये तो सिंपल है. हाँ, calculations, yes, calculations I suggest leaving for there. Always start with organic. It's the easiest. Do the first couple of questions. Wherever you see calculations, skip and go on. Why did we use kilojoules? Because enthalpy change is in kilojoule per mole, not in joule per mole. What's the quickest method to this? Using the calculator is the quickest method to this. Right? कैसी बातें कर रहे हैं यार? इसमें कौन सा मुश्किल है? He's saying enthalpy change of combustions are given to me, and he's given me this, and he's saying figure out enthalpy change of reaction. I like this again. It's very simple. You've already done this a billion times. Enthalpy change of reaction, we need to find. Hess cycle says the indirect route and the direct route. The energy for indirect route would be equal to, it's the law of heat summation, right? Indirect route equals to the direct route. So he's giving you combustion, enthalpy change of combustion. So you have to combust carbon monoxide, you have to combust methanol, you have to combust this fella right here, and when you combust these fellas, you end up with carbon dioxide and water. And you don't even need to know, you can just call them products. You don't even need to know how many products formed. You can just call them products, because combustion is for 1 mole of anything, 1 mole of anything, 1 mole of anything, right? So for 1 mole, this much energy is required. It's already a balanced equation. For 1 mole of carbon monoxide, 2 minus 283 kilojoule is required. For 1 mole, enthalpy change of combustion for 1 mole of methanol is 726 minus 726, and for 1 mole of this fella that forms ethanoic acid, it's minus 874.1, minus 874.1. And then what do? I say, hey, the direct route, see, what am I doing? The indirect route, I'm not opposing any arrow whatsoever. I always go with the arrow. See, the indirect route to the products is equal to the direct route to the products. Don't switch the arrows, go with the flow, right? If you switch the arrows, then you will have to switch the sign. यार मैंने तो कुछ नहीं किया, कंबशन इसकी की है, कंबशन से ये प्रोडक्ट्स बने, कंबशन से ये बने और कंबशन का डेटा प्लग इन किया है, प्लग इन दिस डेटा एंड आई एम सेइंग हे, इफ यू गो फ्रॉम दिस टू दिस लाइक दिस, और इफ यू गो डायरेक्टली इनटू प्रोडक्ट्स, दे शुड बोथ बी इक्वल, right? So delta HR, I call this X plus minus 874.1. It's the law of summation. Remember, law of heat summation. So you have to sum it. Even if it's minus, put a plus outside it. So this plus minus this equals this plus minus this, right? So equals plus minus 726 plus minus 283. Can you guys figure out X, please? This goes to the right, becomes positive, or add 874.1 on the right hand side. It's going to be 874.1 minus 726 minus 283. So what would you get? A positive sign. क्या मिल रहा है? हाँ जी, क्या मिल रहा है? How do you know which one is limiting and which one is excess? आप मोल्स एंड स्टोइकियोमेट्री के महक मेरा ओ लेवल आईजीसीसी का मैराथन देख लें। ये मोल्स एंड स्टोइकियोमेट्री से दोनों के मोल्स निकालें और फिर इक्वेशन में देखें, अच्छा 1 मोल के लिए 1 मोल चाहिए इक्वेशन के मुताबिक, इधर तो 2 मोल 6 के साथ रिएक्ट करूँ तो इट्स 1:3, मतलब ये 3 वाली चीज़ तो एक्सेस में, ऐसे आपको पता लगता है। नहीं नहीं, वाटर प्रोड्यूस होगा ना अब्बास, कंडेंसेशन पॉलीमराइजेशन है ना। अच्छा, न्यूट्रलाइजेशन में हमेशा पानी बनता है, मैं समझा वो एस्टर की बात करें। न्यूट्रलाइजेशन ऑलवेज वाटर विल फॉर्म, न्यूट्रलाइजेशन में ऑलवेज वाटर फॉर्म्स, ऐसे कोई रिएक्शन नहीं है न्यूट्रलाइजेशन एसिड बेस्ड रिएक्शन में वाटर नहीं है, जैसे NH3 और HCl गैस गैस में रिएक्ट करने फिर पानी नहीं बनता, इट्स एन एसिड बेस्ड रिएक्शन। हाँ जी, क्या बनना है भाई, आंसर बताओ। माइनस में आ रहा है, माइनस, माइनस व्हाट, माइनस 134.9। सॉरी फॉर माई गंदी राइटिंग। डन, नेक्स्ट। Copper reacts with nitric acid under certain conditions. Copper 2 nitrate, water and oxide of nitrogen is formed. अच्छा, copper reacts with what? Nitric acid under certain conditions. Okay, couldn't के देखें under certain conditions इसलिए वो लिख रहा है because he knows that in O levels he taught you that copper will not react with acid because it's below hydrogen in the reactivity series, but here he is saying it reacts under certain conditions, so I'll believe him. He's saying the products are copper 2 nitrate, water and oxide of nitrogen. So copper 2 nitrate, this is how I figure out the formula. Copper 2 का मतलब है copper 2 plus nitrate has a 1 minus charge cross multiply. That's how I figure it out. H2O, and what else forms? An oxide of nitrogen, NOx. अच्छा, NOx, I don't know the oxide of nitrogen. ठीक है जी, देख ले फिर, commanding so many questions of moles. That is what I mean. Even in this year, in this particular exam, you will see there will be so many calculation questions कि आप लोगों का दिमाग घूमेगा. That's why it's also starting to be recommended to Cambridge कि आप MCQ का पेपर का 1 hour 15 से 1 hour 30 पे लेके जाए। हमारे टाइम में it used to be 1 hour. So think about it, we used to do all these calculations in 1 hour. We always used to run out of time, always. So in O levels and in A levels, they are now shifting towards a more calculation and analytical approach. So it's highly likely that a lot of calculations will be tested in your exams. Highly likely. नया कुछ भी नहीं है ओ लेवल्स और ए लेवल्स में, सिर्फ फर्क ओ और ए लेवल्स में मोल्स में यही है कि इक्वेशंस खुद खुद बनाने। अजय सिंह, 3 moles of copper reacts with 8 moles of nitric acid. Okay, 3 moles of copper react with 8 moles of nitric acid. What the hell do you want, examiner? What is the oxidation number of nitrogen in the oxide produced? Okay, ये oxidation number मांग रहा है. For this, we just have to balance out the equation. How do we balance the equation, sir? Try to do it. He's already given you 3 and 8. So see, you have 8 nitrates on the left. You should have 8 nitrates on the right. Or you could say you have 3 coppers on the left. You should have 3 coppers on the right. So सबसे पहले तो मैं इधर 3 add कर देता हूँ. I balance the copper. Balance the copper. Then I'm going to balance the hydrogens because 8 hydrogens on the left and you have 2 on the right. So I can balance this fella. 2 को किससे multiply करूँ कि 8x is equal to 8 over 4. That's going to give me 8 over 2. That's going to give me 4. And now I'm going to balance out. But what am I going to balance out? Shabash, balance out the ends. Balance out the ends. And then in the end, I'll balance out the O because this O balance, I don't know, right? So balance out the ends. You have 8 ends on the left. You have 2 times 1, that's 2. 2 and multiplied by 3. You have 6 ends on the left. Plus plus how many ends? 6 ends on the left. How many ends on the right? You should also have, 8 ends on the left and you have 6 ends here. How many more ends do you need? You need 2 more ends. So I'm going to add a 2 here. Wouldn't I? Because I need 8 ends in total. 6 are already here, 2 more. So 2 here. Now I need to balance out oxygens to figure out N, to figure out O, right? Figure out O. Is it NO or NO2? What in the heavy is this? So 3 times 2, you have 24 O's on the left hand side. On the right, how many O's do you have? 2 times 3, that's 6. 6 times 3, that's 18. So 18 O's here plus 4, that's 22. 18 plus 4, that's 22. And so if you have 22 O's and plus 2 more O's here, plus 2 more O's, that's 24. And see, 24 equals 24. That means it is not NO2, it is in fact NO. Because if it was NO2, then you would have never been able to balance that last bit. You would have never been able to balance the last bit, right? So this is not NO2, it is NO. If it was NO2, then you would have 26 here. It would never ever balance, right? So NO here. And what is the oxidation number of nitrogen in NO? This nitrogen is X, oxygen is -2, equal to 0. Overall oxidation state of any compound is 0. X equals +2. And that is it here. B for a ballerina. B for a ballerina. Can you show how did you do the conversion, bit conversion? Please use the everyone chat. Everybody use the everyone chat. Can you please mute Muhammad Komail? It'll be a huge favor. No. So please use the everyone chat. Come on, 5 more MCQs left, guys. All the reactants and products of the exothermic reaction are gaseous. Now, okay. Always, whenever the examiner gives you these things, always make an enthalpy energy profile diagram for this. This is how the energy profile diagram for an exothermic reaction looks like, isn't it? Energy taken in during bond breaking is less than the energy given out during bond formation. That's how exothermic reaction looks like. Yeah. Now he's saying which statement is correct? The total bond energy of the products. Now they, oh my god, love this MCQ. I love this MCQ. Love this MCQ. See, how do you calculate enthalpy change? It is bonds broken minus bonds formed. What is the energy taken in to break the bonds? This is the energy taken in to break the bonds. And what is the energy given out to form the bonds? This is the energy given out to form the bonds. So energy given out to form the bonds is more in exothermic reaction. See, this arrow is higher compared to this arrow right here. Yes, products are at a lower energy level. P are at a lower energy level, but that's not what he's asking. He's not asking, are the products at a lower energy level compared to reactants? No. He's asking about the bond energies. So he's saying the total bond energies of the products is lesser than the bond energy of the reactants. No, it's more. See, it's more. Bond energy of products is more. That's why to form the bonds, you give out so much energy compared to breaking this. This bond energy is lower of reactants compared to this bond energy. This is higher, right? So products की bond energy higher. He's not asking you about this difference, by the way. He's asking you about the yellow and the green, not the difference. So it's not less, it's more. Products का more hai, more. That's why it's exo. It's more, that's why it's exo. And so it's more, and the enthalpy change is not positive, it's negative. See the correct option. See, here it's saying it's positive. Exothermic is negative. Guys, is this the O-level chemistry class? No, Alina, it's A-levels. It's not O-levels. You've missed out big time. O-levels हो गया. Propene, hydrogen cyanide, and carbon dioxide each contain pi bonds. Propene is what? Meta, ether, prop, and a double bond. This has 1 pi bond and 2 sigmas. Hydrogen cyanide, it's H bonded to C, triple bonded to N. The first bond is always a sigma bond. The other two bonds, since a head-on overlap has already taken place, then it must be a lateral or axial or sideways overlap. The other two bonds are always pi bonds, pi bonds. Which molecules contain two pi bonds? Carbon dioxide and hydrogen cyanide. Hydrogen cyanide does have two pi bonds. Does carbon dioxide have two pi bonds? Let's see. C double bonded to O, double bonded to O. One, the first bond is sigma, the other is pi. The first is sigma, the other must be pi. Yes, two pi bonds here, two pi bonds here is the correct option. Carbon dioxide, propene only has one pi bond. I've even shown it to you. Hydrogen cyanide, yes, has two pi bonds. Propene, again, one pi bond. No. Hydrogen cyanide only? No. Carbon dioxide also has two pi bonds. Done. Could you show the graph again? This is the graph, yeah. This is O level IGCSE. क्या मुफ्त का मार्क था? हाँ हाँ, ऐसे मुफ्त के मार्क्स बहुत होते हैं. अंजी 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 जी सर. ऑर्गेनिक के एमसीक्यूज नहीं होते अभी. हाँ, ऑर्गेनिक इज द इजीएस्ट. ऑर्गेनिक एमसीक्यूज आर द इजीएस्ट. यार व्हाई इज इट सी अशल? आई ऑलरेडी एक्सप्लेन इट. I already explained it. Watch the recording later on. Yeah, it's gonna waste my time now. Or stick to the end. Sir, how would we do this in 15 seconds? This is a 5-second MCQ. This is a 5-second MCQ. When will the class be over? Till I'm done with 20 MCQs. Then I'll stop the class. How do we register for your password? +923181777215. Miss Naiba. Q, R, and S are consecutive elements in period 3. Okay. Of the periodic table. Element R has the highest first. Here I want to add the periodic table here for you guys. Again, these type of questions are the easiest. See, this is period 3. This is the first period, the second period, and this is period 3. Great. Now, when you talk about ionization energies, see, he's going to talk about ionization energy and melting point. In period 3, you must know the exceptions, and you should know the why for the exception. You know that ionization energy across the period generally increases. You should know the whys behind it. But there's an exception between magnesium and aluminum. Aluminum should have had a higher ionization energy looking at the general trend, but it doesn't, because aluminum has a 3p electron, and 3p electrons are already at a higher energy level. Number one. And number two, aluminum faces additional subshell shielding. It is shielded by 3s2, whereas magnesium is shielded by not by 3s2, rather it's shielded by 2p6 and 2s2 and 1s2, right? But aluminum is also shielded by 3s2. So there are two reasons. The p electron, the 3p1 electron, is already at a higher energy level, so it's easier to remove it. And aluminum 3p electron faces additional shielding from the 3s2 subshell. That's why these are the two reasons why aluminum has a lower ionization energy compared to magnesium. Then you must know the difference between the exception between phosphorus and sulfur here. And the same exceptions apply to period 2, by the way, boron and beryllium, and the same reasons. So why is there a dip from phosphorus to sulfur? There's a dip because you realize that the phosphorus has 3p1, 2, 3. It is half filled. 3p3. It is half filled, and half filled are more stable, first of all. Secondly, sulfur has, first of all, it's not half filled. Number one, you have spin pair repulsion here. Spin pair repulsion. So it's easier to remove electrons. So there are two reasons. You say the reason why phosphorus has a higher ionization energy compared to sulfur, even though you have to tell the examiner, even though sulfur has higher nuclear charge. Even though sulfur has higher nuclear charge, phosphorus has a higher ionization energy because, number one, it has half-filled p orbitals, which is more stable. And number two, sulfur experiences spin pair repulsion in one of its 3p orbitals. पूरी बातें लिखा करें, ये आधी आधी बात लिखेंगे ना, अल्लाह की कसम 0 मार्क मिलता है. Cambridge is very specific in A levels. If you just like sulfur faces spin pair repulsion, oh, where does it face spin pair repulsion in my head, in my brain? Where does it face spin pair repulsion? It faces spin pair repulsion in one of its 3p orbitals due to a pair of electron being present. थ्योरी में अगर ऐसे आप कंप्लीट नहीं लिखेंगे ना, 1 मार्क भी नहीं मिलेगा. ये मेरे से लिख लें. अच्छे अच्छे बच्चे होते हैं, सब कुछ आता है उनको, एक एक चीज उनको आती है, फिर भी दे एंड अप विद C's and D's and E's and F's in their AS. उसकी रीजन यही है, जितना ज्यादा आप एग्जामिनर को डिटेल दे सकते हैं दे. Give as much detail as possible to the examiner, provided you do not contradict yourself. Please do not contradict yourself. So even if I write this, no marks. Spin pair repulsion in one of the 3p orbitals due to two electrons in that orbital, पूरी बात लिखा करें, or due to a pair of electron in that orbital, please. और ये भी लिख सकते हैं since the orbital and orbital since an orbital can only hold a maximum of two electrons, सब कुछ लिख सकते हैं, लिख के थाप दे थोप दे सब कुछ कर ले, कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट बस अपने आप को मत करें, जितना ज्यादा लिख सकते हैं लिखिए थ्योरी के पेपर में. ऑल्दो टीचर्स एडवाइस अगेंस्ट इट आई डोंट. खैर ये कहानी तो हो गई. कह रहे हैं कि ये क्यू पी आर एस जो है दे आर कंसेक्यूटिव एलिमेंट्स, और मेल्टिंग पॉइंट का ग्राफ कैसे है, और ये अच्छा खैर वो कह रहे हैं element R has the highest first ionization energy. What this means is if you go across the period, if this is Q, this must be R, and the other fella should is if R has the highest first ionization energy, P should be somewhere here, right? And what does this mean? This means if you're going across the period, R or P के बीच में, R and P के बीच में क्या है? R and P के बीच में what do you see between R and P? You see the exception. So R and P, you see an exception. R can either be what? R can either be magnesium, because magnesium or aluminum may dip hai, or R can be phosphorus. These are the two options, right? So either magnesium or it can be P4, phosphorus, right? Done. Then it says R has the highest first energy, but the lowest melting point of these three. So if you look at the melting point, this is the melting point. R has the lowest melting point. And what does that indicate to you? What does that indicate to? If R has the, sorry, R ये और ये P है. If R has the lowest melting point, magnesium के बाद क्या आता है? Aluminum, right? If R were magnesium, think about this. If R were magnesium, P would have been what? P would have been aluminum, and aluminum has a higher melting point compared to R. It has a higher melting point compared to R, doesn't it? एल्यूमिनियम का मेल्टिंग पॉइंट जो है वो आर के कंपैरिजन में ग्रेटर है. बट यू ऑल्सो रियलाइज वो क्या कह रहे हैं कि दिस आर हैज द लोएस्ट मेल्टिंग पॉइंट, वेयर एज मैग्नीशियम से पीछे फिर क्या आएगा? सोडियम. देखिए मैग्नीशियम से पीछे सोडियम आ रहा है, एंड सोडियम हैज द लोएस्ट मेल्टिंग पॉइंट आउट ऑफ ऑल ऑफ दीज थ्री. Right? If R were magnesium, although it would have a lower melting point than aluminum, but then it wouldn't have the lowest melting point because sodium would have the lowest melting point. So sodium has a it does not it only contributes one electron to the lattice, whereas this contributes two and this contributes three. So the electrostatic force of attraction are the weakest here compared to this and compared to this, between the lattice of positive and the C or D electrons, right? So realize that R wouldn't have the lowest melting point, and so you realize, hey, it can't be magnesium, R can't be magnesium, the only other option is phosphorus. Now let me tell you why it's phosphorus. The reason why R is phosphorus is because, understand, that phosphorus does in fact have a lower melting point, because phosphorus comes after silicon. Silicon is a giant molecular structure. It has a high melting point, highest melting point, right? Sulfur and phosphorus, which fella has the lower melting point? Sir, it's phosphorus. Why? Because phosphorus exists in the form of P4 and sulfur exists in the form of S8. Sulfur has more ID-ID interactions, although both are non-polar, but since sulfur has more electrons, it has more ID-ID interactions. So this has the lowest melting point, whereas it has the highest first ionization energy, because see across the period ionization energy increases. So silicon के बाद इसकी ionization energy higher होगी, and sulfur की higher होती अगर exception ना होता. So this has the highest ionization energy. That means it's phosphorus. So C, B, A all are wrong. Sorry, C, B, R is phosphorus. R is phosphorus. S must be sulfur. C, S8 phosphorus. Silicon has the silicon has the highest melting point. This fella has the lowest MP. R has the lowest MP and the highest first ionization energy, because across the period. Right? So D is the correct option. C is wrong. Does anyone have notes for all the equations of inorganic? Amna, meri inorganic ka lecture, watch lecture 38.5. It's available on YouTube. It has all the reactions. A reaction scheme of group 2 metal M is shown. M reacts with oxygen, X reacts with water, and Y reacts with blood. What the hell is going on? It's in which row shows correct? Oh my god. I'm getting cooked. I don't have any other method. सिर्फ ऑर्गेनिक का कराया यार. हम्म. अच्छा जी. मैसेज पे मैसेज आई जा रहे हैं, मैसेज पे मैसेज आई जा रहे हैं, मैसेज पे मैसेज आई जा रहे हैं. ओके. सो अच्छा क्या सवाल है? एम रिएक्ट्स विद ऑक्सीजन and then reacts with water, and then X reacts as a M is a metal, right? So let's suppose it's M is magnesium. I'm just gonna assume, right? So magnesium reacts with oxygen. M कह दें, magnesium कह दें, magnesium oxide बना, इसको मैं X कह रहा हूँ. या M oxide बना या magnesium oxide बना, I couldn't care less. इसको मैं X कह देता हूँ. Then magnesium oxide further reacts with water. तो मैग्नीशियम ऑक्साइड जब पानी के साथ रिएक्ट करता है क्या बनता है? मैग्नीशियम हाइड्रोक्साइड. मेटल ऑक्साइड्स मेक मैग्नीशियम हाइड्रोक्साइड बनेगा. And this Y reacts further with sulfuric acid, H2SO4. It will form what? Magnesium sulfate and water. So this is Z. This is Z. This is Y. Sorry, this is Z. This is like Y, and this is X, and this was M. तो yeah, चलो ये तो हो गया. आगे बताएं जी, पूछ क्या रहे हैं? पूछ ये रहा है, it could be anything. You could have taken barium for all that matters, because this is group 2 ना, तो group 2 में कोई भी ले लें, कुछ नहीं होता, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. He's saying solubility of Y in water. Now, okay, before I read this, read the question. Which row is correct as M descends group 2 from magnesium to barium? Solubility को क्या होगा? What would happen to the solubility of Y as you go down the group in group 2? That's his question. अंग्रेजी क्यों झाड़ रहा है? साफ साफ पूछ के, as you descend in group 2, down group 2. Down group 2, what would happen to the solubility of Y? Solubility of Y would increase because barium hydroxide is the most soluble. So solubility of Y would increase. What would happen to the solubility of Z? Solubility of Z, barium sulfate is the least soluble or the most insoluble. So the solubility decreases, the least soluble. Na? That's why you even use barium ions for the test of certain, because it's the least soluble, it's insoluble. So Z would decrease, Y would increase, right? Hydroxide की increase होती है, so tuck gone. And Z का decrease होगा. C is the correct option. Guys, also somebody, I hope somebody has the marking scheme open, because I'm doing these MCQs for the first time. Do let me know if any MCQ is wrong. I don't think it's wrong. Hajra Singh, it's open. You do? अच्छा सही जा रहे हैं हाजरा. हाजरा सिंह सर सही जा रहे हैं. ये कॉन्सेप्ट ही हैं यार, मैं पहली दफा आप लोगों के साथ ही कर रहा हूँ, मतलब सही है यार. U, V, W represent different halogens. The table shows the results of 9 experiments in which aqueous solutions VU2, मतलब जैसे Cl2 होता है, लेकिन that's how your brain should think. Br2 होता है, I2 होता है, like this, right? They are added separately to the aqueous solution containing U minus V minus. जैसे आप just like you add chlorine to Ki, this I means basically you have the iodide ion here, so this is the U minus ion maybe, and he's talking about like V2, E2. तो ये कहानी चल रही है basically, right? Rama, you can watch this recording on at Carboxyl Chem, and then after tomorrow's class, I'm gonna then conduct our past paper session officially. You can register for the past paper session if you want by contacting Miss Naiba. खैर, अपनी promotion भी कर रहा हूँ ना यार, मशहूर तो हो जाऊँ थोड़ा सा. खैर वो कह रहे कि which row contains U minus, V minus, W minus in order of decreasing strength as reducing agents. अच्छा, before I talk about decreasing strength as reducing agent, you know that halide ions are reducing agents. सर आप थोड़ा सा वो कर रहे हैं यार. अच्छा ज्यादा कर रहा हूँ यशा, ज्यादा अपनी तारीफ कर रहा हूँ, ज्यादा अपनी वो कर रहा हूँ, क्या करूँ? मतलब ज्यादा करूँ, क्या करूँ? क्या कर लोगे? क्या कर लोगे हैं? अच्छा मजाक करूँ. So halide ions are reducing agents, and halogens are oxidizing agents. I hope you know this, right? And then when you look at the power of reducing agent, क्या होता है? The substance which reduces another substance by oxidizing itself. So खुद oxidize होता है but reduces another substance. Now when you look at chloride ion, bromide ion, iodide ion, these should come in your brain, by the way. If you look at them, which one is the best reducing agent? The best reducing agent out of all of these is the iodide ion. Why? Because it has the largest structure, and the largest structure means it can easily give off that electron. It can easily reduce all the other species, right? Can't it? It can. So halide ions may reducing power increases, whereas as halogens may oxidizing power decreases. Because oxidizing agent क्या होता है? A substance which oxidizes itself, खुद electron lose करते हैं. And you know that chlorine, a substance that loses electron itself and sorry, what am I saying? Yeah, a substance which reduces itself but oxidizes another substance. Reduces itself but oxidizes another substance. Oxidizes means it takes an electron from the other substance. Now you realize oxidizing power decreases. Why? Because it's easier for chlorine atom to take in the electron from another substance and oxidize it compared to iodine. Why? Because chlorine is smaller in size. It has a greater net nuclear attraction, smaller in size lower atomic or smaller atomic radii compared to this fella, right? So it can take in the electron more easy, right? So don't keep me niche यार, वैसे ही मेरी तारीफें करें अपने दोस्तों को, की बस जल्दी मेरे पीछे पड़ जाते हैं। खैर, that's the idea. Now, one more thing to realize, मुझे एक बात बताएं, chlorine, when it reacts with potassium iodide, these things should come in your brain simultaneously as you read this. ये मेरे जहन में आ रहे हैं और मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ. That's the only difference. I could have done this MCQ in 5 seconds, but I am not, because these things are coming in my brain and I am telling you. When chlorine reacts with iodine, what happens? The more reactive halogen displaces the less reactive halogen from its salt solution, right? So you get KCl plus I2. And you realize, hey, the most reactive, the most powerful reducing agent is the one which would be replaced by all the others, wouldn't it? It would be replaced with all the others, just like iodide. It would be replaced by chlorine, bromine, fluorine, all right, replaced with others. This is what I think. Now look at this particular table. Now, if you look at U2, U2 is reacting with U minus. आप halogens सिर्फ देखें, just look at the halogens. यार, which one is the more reactive halogen? The more reactive halogen will have the least reactive halide, right? खैर, U2 कह रहे कि वो ना रिएक्शन U माइनस, जाहिर सी बात है U2 U माइनस के साथ क्यों रिएक्शन करे, but U2 is not showing any reaction with this nor any reaction with this. Does it ring the bell? It rings a bell like this कि मुझे लग रहा है U2 is iodine, because see, it wouldn't react with KCl, no reaction, because iodine is below KCl in the reactivity series, and iodine is also below bromine in the reactivity series. So reactivity कह रहा हूँ in group 7, right? So it's not able to displace bromine as well. So U2 is iodine. What should be the halide for I2? It is going to be U minus, which is going to be what? The strongest reducing agent. कितना मजा आया, मजा आया, ये मेरे जहन में ये कहानी चली. No, U2 can't be chlorine. Why can't it be chlorine? Because chlorine would be able to displace the other fella. It would be able to displace V. Chlorine would be able to displace KW, the W, but it doesn't. But this fella isn't. He's saying, yeah, no reaction. There's also a shortcut to it. बताता हूँ end में ना. Shortcut भी बताता हूँ. You can relax करें. So neither nor. Done. देन V2 खैर शॉर्टकट को छोड़ दे, नहीं बताता हूँ. शॉर्टकट एक है लेकिन मैं नहीं बताऊंगा, वो कंफ्यूज ना कर दे बच्चों को, दफा कर दे. अब V2 क्या कर रहे हैं? V2 इज रिएक्टिंग विद U माइनस, तो U2 फॉर्म हो रहा है, बिल्कुल हो रहा है, बिल्कुल. हमने तो पता लग गया कि भाई ये तो आयोडीन होगा, ये बंदा U2, U माइनस और U2. खैर, और U माइनस इज इफेक्टिवली द आयोडाइड. अच्छा, वो कह रहे कि V2 जब W माइनस के साथ रिएक्ट करते हैं तो W2 बनता है. तो V2 क्या हो सकता है? क्या वो ब्रोमीन होगा या वो क्लोरीन होगा? बताएं जी, क्या होगा V2? KW लेट्स सपोज ये, और ये KW है लेट्स सपोज. Would bromine react with, अगर देखें ये KW है ना, W can either be chlorine or W can be bromine. That's the only two options left. It can either be chlorine or it can be bromine. Either chlorine or bromine. Now you tell me, will Br displace the chlorine from its salt solution? No, it wouldn't, because Br is below chlorine in the reactivity series. And what does that tell you? But in this particular case, V2 तो कर रहा है, V2 तो जी displace कर रहा है Br को from its salt solution. That means what? That means that V2 must be chlorine, because it's displacing both. It's displacing the iodide as well as the bromide and forming Br2, isn't it? And W2 को देखें, W2 must be bromine then. W2 must be Br2. Why must it be Br2? अच्छा, all of these things should have come in your brain in 5-10 seconds. ये आ जाएंगे यार, प्रैक्टिस के साथ आ जाएंगे, लेकिन मैं तो एक एक चीज एक्सप्लेन कर रहा हूँ. W2 must be bromine, because देखिए ब्रोमीन क्या कर रहा है. ब्रोमीन इज फॉर्मिंग U2, मतलब क्या है, वो आयोडाइड आयन को डिस्प्लेस करके U2 बना रहा है. देन V के साथ कोई रिएक्शन नहीं शो कर रहा. हाँ, V के साथ तो कोई रिएक्शन नहीं शो कर रहा, because इट कैन डिस्प्लेस क्लोरीन फ्रॉम इट्स सॉल्ट सॉल्यूशन. और W के साथ तो कोई रिएक्शन है नहीं ना. ये तो मतलब इनको क्रॉस मारे, इनको क्रॉस मारे, इनको क्रॉस मारे, इनका तो कुछ नहीं करना. सो दैट्स द आइडिया. W2 is Br2, this fella is Cl2 and this fella is I2. Now वो reducing agent की बात करें कि decreasing strength of the reducing agent, this is I2, and so it will give you I minus as the reducing agent, and this is the strongest of all. तो इसका मतलब क्या है कि यार जी U minus is the strongest reducing agent, then it is Br minus which is the strongest reducing agent, and the least strong reducing agent is the Cl1 minus, which is called V minus. So least weakest kya hai? V minus is the weakest right here. So A and C are wrong. And then the strongest is what? The strongest is U minus W 0. ये बहुत आसान आसान एमसीक्यूज हैं, 5-5 सेकंड में होने के हैं। क्योंकि देखिए द मोमेंट यू वुड हैव सीन U2, आप कहते हैं अच्छा U2 है, ये किसी के साथ रिएक्शन नहीं करे, इसका मतलब है ये फैला आयोडाइड U माइनस जो है वो एक आयोडाइड आयन है, और आयोडाइड आयन है तो दैट्स द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट रिड्यूसिंग एजेंट, तो यू वुड हैव कैंसल आउट C and D। एंड वीकेस्ट कौन सा होता? वो जो सबके साथ रिएक्शन कर रहा है, तो U2 और W2 ये वीकेस्ट होता है, V माइनस वीकेस्ट होता है because ये इसके साथ भी रिएक्शन करे, इसके साथ भी रिएक्शन करे, तो रिड्यूसिंग एजेंट वीकेस्ट होता, तो ये B. You would have done this directly, very quickly. But see, if I did not teach you guys all of this thought process, ये कभी आपको फिर याद नहीं है, आप रट्टे ही मारते रह जाएंगे, सारी जिंदगी रट्टे मारना, फिर बैठे रहो। अच्छा, उफ, लास्ट एमसीक्यू बिफोर वी फिनिश ऑफ दिस क्लास, आखिरी एमसीक्यू बताएं जी। करें यार, खुद करें आखिरी एमसीक्यू, बस हो गई मेरी, मेरी बस हो। यार सेफ जो है ना, बस कोशिश करें हाईएस्ट एम करें, माँ हम डोंट जस्ट से कि यार सेफ जोन में रहूं, सेफ जोन में, बस कोशिश करें टॉप नॉच, गिव इट योर ऑल माँ। नॉट 100 यार, ज्यादा, ज्यादा देन 100, गिव इट योर ऑल, बट दैट्स व्हाट आई रेकमेंड। डोंट अभी से अगर आप कह रहे हैं कि यार अच्छा 20 इधर ले लूंगा, अच्छा आई एम ए में हूँ, ए में, ये आपको मेंटली ना केज कर देगा, याद रखिएगा। मेंटली आप केज हो, बस कहे मैंने फुल मार्क्स लेने, हमेशा इस माइंडसेट जाए फुल लूंगी, सब कुछ पढ़ा है फुल लूंगी, इसका बाप ही होगा, इस माइंडसेट से जाए होगा। अच्छा, जे इज आइदर MgCl2 और AlCl3। अच्छा, नाउ MgCl2 है, मतलब it's either the aluminum ion present or the magnesium ion present. You need to remember qualitative analysis for this now. It's just an MCQ. और के कह रहे हैं कि SiO2 है या SiCl, के साथ तो बाद में देखते हैं, पहले ये चेक करते हैं कि ये Al3 प्लस है कि Mg2 प्लस है। He's saying you add a few drops of sodium hydroxide, it gives you a white precipitate. You know that if you add a few drops of aluminum, I don't know the magnesium hydroxide tests by the way, but I know aluminum K test. So if any of the test for aluminum fails, then I'd automatically know it's magnesium 2 plus ion. Although you're not required to know the test for magnesium ions. Please understand, अगर मैं इधर लिख भी लूं, you don't need to know it. You just need to know for aluminum ion, and if it's not aluminum, then it must be magnesium. So let's see. Aluminum ions, you know this. For aluminum ions, let me tell you. With a few drops of NaOH, aluminum ions will give you a white PPT. Aluminum hydroxide banega. Then with excess, the white PPT is in, no, the white precipitate is in, no, it is what? Soluble. And then if in few drops of aqueous ammonia, it is what? White PPT. And then in excess, it becomes insoluble. The white PPT does not dissolve. Here it becomes soluble, gives you a colorless solution. So this is the story for aluminum ion. Let's see if this is correct. He adds a couple of drops of this white PPT forms. Yes. Excess में क्या कहते हैं? The precipitate dissolves. Yes, the precipitate dissolves. Done. And so if it dissolves, I know it fulfilled the test for aluminum 3 plus. And that means it must be aluminum 3 plus, magnesium नहीं होगा, बस खत्म, इतनी बात से खत्म। You don't need to know the test for magnesium. Magnesium hydroxide is insoluble ना। अगर आपको ये पता नहीं भी था magnesium का test, you know that even if you add excess sodium hydroxide, magnesium hydroxide is the most insoluble or the least soluble hydroxide. बेरियम हाइड्रोक्साइड मोस्ट सॉल्युबल है ना, तो ये भी आपको पता है। ये कौन से चैप्टर में है हिशाम? ये कोई चैप्टर नहीं, ये ओ लेवल IGCSE है, क्वालिटेटिव एनालिसिस है, जो आपके प्रैक्टिकल के पेपर के पीछे दिया होता है। खैर, के के कह रहे हैं कि के मैं पानी को, सो दिस मस्ट बी एल्यूमिनियम 3 प्लस आई ना, एल्यूमिनियम क्लोराइड ही होगा, इसका मतलब CD तो गलत है। कह के इज आइदर SiO2 और SiCl4। SiO2 add to or SiO2 does not react with water, no reaction. But SiCl4, if you react it with water, what forms? Sir, the silicon and the oxygens, they form SiO2, which is an off-white precipitate, and HCl forms. This is what forms. So yes, it does give you pH less than 7 because obviously HCl forms, and misty fumes are formed also because of the HCl that forms. An off-white precipitate also forms. See, a white precipitate or an off-white precipitate of SiO2 forms. So this must be what? This must be SiCl4, not SiO2, because silicon dioxide or silicon 4 oxide does not react with oxygen. So K must be SiCl4. Okay, क्या है? SiO2 नहीं है, SiCl4। डन। बस यार मैं थक गया हूँ। बस 20 MCQs हो गए। ये देखिए मैं आपको मजे की बात बताऊं, 25 MCQ के बाद आपकी पूरी ऑर्गेनिक, 26 26th MCQ एंड अबव, सो 26th and above इट्स ऑल ऑर्गेनिक, 26th and above, so almost how many MCQs? 15 MCQs will always be tested from organic. See, and these are free marks. See, 26 and above, all organic. All. I've only added 30 here, but 26 and above, all organic. So we're done with the first part of this class. We're going to continue with the next, inshallah, tomorrow. Any questions, guys? आप पूछें। यार आई लव दिस ए लेवल क्लास। ओ लेवल में यार 300 से ऊपर बच्चे थे, मैनेज ही नहीं होते, इतने फजूल सवाल, रिएक्शंस, इमोजीज। ए लेवल वाले बच्चे इतने खामोशी से क्लास ले रहे हैं, मुझे लग रहा है, मुझे ऐसे लग रहा है कि ए लेवल बच्चे चाह रहे हैं कि यार अब दे वांट कि लेट्स लर्न समथिंग कि ए लेवल बच्चों को टेंशन होती है, ओ लेवल वालों को इतनी नहीं होती। वो कहते हैं यार कोई फेल मूल हो जाए कुछ नहीं होता। ए लेवल को एक्चुअलिटी में टेंशन होती है, इसलिए खामोश बैठे हुए हैं, सवाल पूछ रहे हैं, सवाल सुन रहे हैं। सर वी आर जस्ट टायर्ड ऑफ दिस शिट। सर हम थक गए हैं। अच्छा ये अच्छी बात है यार, मतलब ये टाइमिंग बेस्ट है। आप थके हो मेरे लिए तो बहुत अच्छी चीज़ है ये। कोई सवाल, कोई शक, कोई शुबा? एएस इज हम्बलिंग, नो इट्स नॉट मरियम, इट्स जस्ट। सर हाँ उसमें 300 होते हैं ना इसलिए, हाँ ये तो है। चलो जी रजिस्टर करना है कर लो, कल आधा पेपर कल कर लूँ बस। आयशा कल एक आधा पेपर, इसका आधा पेपर कल कर लूँगा, बस सही है। सिर्फ वो 15B कैसे था? अच्छा कोई सवाल हमने गलत तो नहीं किया हाजरा? वर यू चेकिंग? नो नो क्वेश्चन रॉन्ग, ओ आई मीन्स आई एम गुड यार, आई कुड हैव स्कोर्ड अ डिस्टिंक्शन। अभी तक तो, अभी तक तो यही है। अच्छा हु सिंग 15 का क्या यार? 15 सिंपल है ना। कह रहे द टोटल बॉन्ड एनर्जी ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स इज मोर देन द टोटल एनर्जी ऑफ रिएक्टेंट्स। इसकी बॉन्ड एनर्जी ज़्यादा है ना, इसलिए तो नेगेटिव में वैल्यू है। बॉन्ड फॉर्मेशन की एनर्जी आप कैसे निकालते हैं? यू टेक, जैसे HF बॉन्ड बन रहा है इसकी एनर्जी, फिर HI लेट सपोज बन रहा है इसकी एनर्जी, इसको बॉन्ड एनर्जीज कहते हैं ना। तो ये जाहिर सी बात है ग्रेटर होंगी, इसलिए तो ये फिगर बड़ी होगी ना। ये देखें ये ग्रेटर है, बॉन्ड एनर्जीज आर ग्रेटर, दैट्स व्हाई अ लॉट ऑफ एनर्जीज गिवन आउट। बॉन्ड एनर्जीज जो है वो बॉन्ड ब्रेकिंग और बॉन्ड फॉर्मेशन की सेम होती है, सिर्फ साइन बदलता है। इसलिए वो कह रहे हैं कि टोटल बॉन्ड एनर्जी इज मोर, इट इज मोर फॉर प्रोडक्ट्स कंपेयर टू रिएक्टेंट्स। सर विल यू डू ईयरलीज इन बोथ मंथ्स? हम देखते हैं ना यार। वैसे तो मेरा प्लान ये है माहम, मैं आपको अपना प्लान बताऊं, वो ये है मेरा प्लान कि 2 महीनों का है। आपका थ्योरी का पेपर कब है? व्हेन इज योर थ्योरी पेपर? कैन समबडी टेल मी? 18th, 18th मई? दैट इज ऑसम। वो ब्रांड्स की टंग, मैं क्यों टेंशन ले रहा हूँ? ओए 18th मई को आपका पेपर है, दैट इज ऑसम। आई हैव सो मच टाइम टू गो इनटू इन डेप्थ। बस सही है भाई, फिर तो हम 1 लाख, फिर तो हम जो है वो भी कर सकते हैं। हम तो फिर वो भी कर सकते हैं, आराम से पेपर करेंगे, आराम से करेंगे। देन वी आर गोइंग टू डू वन पेपर इन 3 क्लासेस और 4 क्लासेस, दिस इज ऑसम। आई एम गोइंग टू डू द 2025 सेट विद यू गाइस एंड देन जो एंड में आप लोगों को वो होगी ना, जिन क्वेश्चंस में आपको मुश्किल हुई होगी उसके पर्टेनिंग हम कुछ टॉपिकल्स भी कर लेंगे। तो ये है कि ये हिसाब किताब। 18 मार्च मई को मेरे पास बहुत टाइम। एंड व्हेन इज योर एमसीक्यू पेपर? व्हेन इज योर एमसीक्यू पेपर? दिस इज ऑसम, आई एम सो ग्लैड। 2nd of June. Boom shakalaka. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan after this MCQ paper. I'll do one more MCQ paper with you, a couple of more MCQ papers of the 2025 set, and then we'll shift completely to theory. We're going to do theory के papers और 2-3 MCQ के paper तो हम सारे करेंगे। 2025 all sets we are going to do every single variant. I'm going to do all of that with you. Don't worry about it. बट मैं क्या करना चाह रहा हूँ, आई एम गोना नाउ स्ट्रैटेजाइज थिंग्स बिकॉज वी हैव अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम ऑन आवर हैंड्स। हम स्ट्रैटेजाइज ऐसे करेंगे कि हमें, मैं जब एमसीक्यू पेपर्स हो जाएंगे ना, तो 18 मई के बाद मेरे पास ऑलमोस्ट कितना टाइम है यार, ऑलमोस्ट 12-13 डेज है। तो 3-4 पेपर्स मैं उस दिन के लिए छोड़ूंगा, या 2-3 पेपर्स मैं उस ड्यूरेशन के लिए छोड़ दूंगा कि चीजें आपके जहन में फ्रेश हो। और उससे पहले तक आई विल कंप्लीट द थ्योरी सेट एंड देन आई विल आल्सो ट्राई टू डू टॉपिक वाइज क्वेश्चंस विद यू गाइस बाकी सालों के, जो कि मैंने काफी हद तक किए हैं, आपके पोर्टल्स पे अवेलेबल होंगे। सर विद द क्लासेस बी 1 hour लॉन्ग? मोस्ट प्रॉब्ली यस। सर बट वेरिएंस में एमसीक्यूज रिपीट होते हैं, हाँ हाँ, अगर रिपीट हो गए और अच्छी बात है, अगर पूरा का पूरा पेपर रिपीट हो, आई थिंक टू पेपर्स आर नॉर्मली द सेम, तो अगर रिपीट हो गए वो फिर हम नहीं करेंगे, हम फिर उसकी जगह ये एक दफा 2025 सेट खत्म कर दूं ना मैं, फिर मैं टॉपिकल्स की तरफ शिफ्ट हो जाऊंगा। ऑल्दो लिसन टू दिस वेरी केयरफुली, ऑल्दो, और मैं P3 की गाइड भी दे दूंगा, एक P3 की गाइड भी दे दूंगा, लेकिन लिसन टू दिस वेरी केयरफुली, अगेन आई एम टेलिंग यू, दिस इज नॉट माई लाइबिलिटी ऑफिशियली। लाइबिलिटी मेरी ऑफिशियली क्या है कि आई एम गोइंग टू डू द 2025 सेट, एंड ऑन योर पोर्टल देयर आर a couple of topical questions that I have added for every single chapter almost, जिससे आपको अगर इधर कोई मसला हो रहा है तो उसके questions आप करेंगे। तो ये मैंने अपनी तरफ से ना आप लोगों के लिए गिफ्ट के तौर पे टॉपिकल्स रखे, दिस इज माई ओनली लाइबिलिटी। माई लाइबिलिटी इज नॉट डूइंग एक्स्ट्रा टॉपिकल्स, वो मैं आपको आइडिया बता रहा हूँ अपना, कि इफ आई गेट द टाइम, इंशाल्लाह होगा मेरे पास टाइम, तो आई एम गोना डू टॉपिकल्स एक्स्ट्रा एक्स्ट्रा, मैं थोड़ा सा स्ट्रेटेजाइज करूंगा चीज़ों को, मैं आपको अपना विजन बता रहा हूँ। यस, मेरे ऊपर लाइबिलिटी ये नहीं है, P3 का गाइड मैं दे दूंगा, मेरे ऊपर लाइबिलिटी नहीं है P3 का गाइड देना, मैं दे दूंगा अगर मेरे पास टाइम हो, और प्रॉब्ली इंशाल्लाह होगा, लेकिन देखेंगे, देखेंगे देखेंगे इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। सर फर्स्ट एमसीक्यू की वर्किंग दिखा दें प्लीज। बेटा क्यों उस टाइम नज़र काम नहीं कर रहे थे, क्या चल? फर्स्ट एमसीक्यू तो कोई वर्किंग है ही नहीं है, तो मैं आपको एक्स्ट्रा चीज़ें इतनी पढ़ाई हैं फिर यार, आई एम ग्लैड यार, 18 मार्च और 2 जून, मैं तो खुशी के बारे में मर मुर ना जाऊँ, मुझे तो पता ही नहीं था यार कि ये हिसाब किताब है। चलो जी गाइस, सी यू ऑल, इंशाल्लाह दिस विल बी अपलोडेड ऑन टू यूट्यूब एट का बॉक्स कैम। आई डोंट टीच A2 केमिस्ट्री, एएस इतनी मुश्किल से आप लोगों ने ज़बरदस्ती मेरे से पढ़वाई है, मेरे तो दिल का जोर ही नहीं है, A2 भी नहीं पढ़ाना चाहता, एएस भी नहीं, ओ लेवल भी नहीं, बस मैं थक गया हूँ यार, आई एम नाउ बुड्ढा। आपका नाम क्या है? मर मुर जाओ शीदा, मेरा नाम है सुलाइमान खान। ओके गाइस, लव यू ऑल, बाय, चाओ।